Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Collapse Talk with Gabriel Morero, and I'm glad you can be with me today. And everything that's happening, of course, whenever I put something out, there's something new that happens and something tragic, of course, with Uvalde. And yeah, man, everything sucks right now. It just feels like everything just like went to shit like really quickly. So yeah, not just like with this mass shooting incident and other mass shootings that have been happening around the country, but also, well, I mean, for myself, personal life stuff, but then also like we have this inflation stuff that's getting worse by the minute, and it's just, yeah. And then also like today there's some market issues, and it doesn't look good. It does not look good. So yeah, we're about to have a really rough summer. It seems like it's gonna suck a lot, but hey, I'm doing the show and I'm here to comment on it, so you'll be able to hear my 2 cents. But before I dive into like the main like show and the program, I kind of just want to talk at least just my personal life at least, because I don't really have any other outlets to express myself and confide in. Of course, I'm always talking about the really personal issues and some family drama, but I don't really care anymore. I just don't, because like I'm always under attack and there's no space for me to make my case. So this is my space, and I'm just gonna have to say what I have to say. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Right now, things aren't good for me. And, I try to do my best. I have this job and doing what I can. And, with this job that I've had, so they had me doing field calling. So it wasn't fundraising. Rather, we'd be transferring folks to like representative's office and such, or, signing petitions. So I was doing that for a couple of weeks, I believe maybe 2 months or so. And no, just a month actually. And I was doing that just fine. And nobody ever said anything. Nobody gave me any comments or input. Nobody, like, I would read off script and like, because if I read the script verbatim, then it would be at least almost 2 minutes of just straight talking. Whereas I was doing my own little pitch. And yeah, within like 30 seconds. And people would, and like nobody ever said anything about it. Nobody gave a shit. And then I went over to fundraising. They recommended, or, it's like, it wasn't really a promotion. They just like put me there. But it felt like a promotion. But I also had the feeling, since it's fundraising and involves money, it's probably going to be a little more strict and stringent. And yeah, my fears were confirmed, because holy shit, man. Like, they're just so like micromanaging and like, ooh, like, oh, you're doing great, but you're fucking up. So we have to like, it's just so like, it's so, oh my God, this is why I hate corporate spaces and these 9-to-5s. And, it's a remote job. So it's nice that I can like basically be wearing my PJs and just hanging out and like doing whatever. My cat's like running around. But dude, like, it's still the super like micromanaging, and like they always have to like, if I take like a 30-second piss break between calls, they have like a pause period. So if I take like maybe 30-40 seconds taking a piss, it's just somebody's got to be like, oh, please disposition your call. And it's like, one time I had to take a shit. So, I took because they give us like a 10-minute break and then 4-minute personal breaks. So it's like, okay, I have to be a little more strategic where I use those. And so, I had to take a shit. I really was trying to hold it, but I couldn't. So I just put on break. And it's like maybe like an hour and 40 minutes in. And then once I come back on, I hear the supervisor, hi, why did you take a break? Yeah, because they do that. Like, it's like you're fine, and then in 1 second you just hear this ghost in your headset, like, hello, hey, just we're touching up. So it's just, yeah. And they're like, why'd you take a break? And I'm like, I didn't want to say, I was taking a shit. So I'm just like, I was using the restroom and I had to go number 2. Well, okay, but you can't do that until the 2 hour point. That's when it's just like, okay. And then today, so there's that. And then today, they basically sent me home early because they have this technicality. So they don't count cumulative results. So they don't count the fact that I've been getting at least, maybe 5 donations a day. Tuesday I got 10. Yesterday I had like 7. So but they don't count those cumulative results, because they're hung up on this like 15 call window. So every 15 calls you have to get a donation in. It's so ridiculous. And then I'm calling people, and there are plenty of people who are enthusiastic, who want to help. But right now, we're in a recession. I mean, basically a depression. Gas and food is going up and everything, and people are, they're penny pinching and they want to help. And of course, like, it's never like, hey, like, we probably shouldn't be pestering these people, and like, because like they want you to like that first no is never like the first, like they don't want you to stop at that. They want you to go further. And so there's a difference between somebody who's like, oh, maybe I'm not too sure. I don't know if I can do it right now. That's something I can work with. So then I can, okay, no, actually, maybe we can do a lower price or one-time fee. Like, I try to work in that respect. But then there's other people who are just straight up like, I'm behind on my payments and my kid has leukemia, and then it's like, oh no, it's like that's the first ask, and they're like, oh well, you have to do 2 more asks, and then that's a refusal. And it's just like, oh my god, this is supposedly a progressive movement, progressive cause, and because we're calling for like HRC, human rights, and Planned Parenthood, and abortion and LGBTQ rights, but it's still super like corporate neoliberal bullshit. It's wow, man, holy shit, man. And so yeah, they let me go today, or not. I mean, they didn't fire me. They just sent me home early because like, oh well, you just had too many refusals. But it's just like, bro, like you didn't even let me get to the 2-hour point, like the midway point, because it's like 2 4-hour shifts. So it's like, bro, like, dude. So now I gotta apply for new jobs. Hopefully, I can get something with a remote position because I don't want to be in an office space right now or some like retail store, grocery store. Yeah, I'm doing what I can. And also like just trying to fix my car. My car's a fucking piece of shit, dude. Like I seriously can't even go to Houston right now because it's like it could just straight up fall apart in the middle of the road. So like I just have to tell my mom straight up, like, I can't visit because my car is a piece of shit. So unless you want to send like $2,000 to help me out and fix it, like I'm just gonna have to stay here and work. So it's just like, and of course, if I ask my family for help, oh no, I'm taking advantage of y'all, even though like I've been trying to get on my feet because I've been having all these adjustment issues as a result of the dysfunctional environment that I was raised in. No, of course not. No, because nothing ever happened to you, right? What happened to you, right? No, yeah, because abuse and trauma never happens to people. It only happens to people when you're like actually getting hit, right? It's never like the environment, right, of fear and stress and anxiety, right? The cortisol and adrenaline that's like through the roof. Do you have any idea how detrimental that is for a young person's development? And then you guys throw me out into the real world expecting me to just be like, oh yeah, now everything's fine, right? Oh my god. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get on a rant like that and just like divulge my family's drama, but it's just like, holy fuck, man. Dude. And then of course, nobody pays attention to the work I've done this semester. Nobody pays attention to how I moved into my own space without a guarantor. I didn't even have anybody co-sign. They let me move in. Or like the good semester that I have. I mean, my GPA is like a 3.3 now. Like, dude, no, of course, just ignore that, right? only like never acknowledge when things are going well, but then when shit hits the fan, oh, but see, it's your fault, right? This is you. So anyway, that's just me being a bit salty right now, just talking, because I don't really have anybody else to talk about with. But anyway, so yeah, with everything that's happening, especially domestically recently, and with this mass shooting and also these economic problems on the way, it's just, yeah, I feel like everybody feels it now. Like, it's kind of hard to ignore it. It's a really, really tight situation. Because, like, honestly, I didn't even think that we would experience any, like, crisis problems until, like, the presidential election. But now it feels like this midterm election could really pop off. Like, dude, holy fuck, man. Maybe even sooner than that. Because, like, when these price issues start hitting the suburbs, it's going to get scary. That's all I have to say. And as I was saying also about just the markets right now, it's Friday, so, and there's also supposed to be a price index report coming out. So it's, yeah, I mean, the traders are kind of like on edge. So I'm reading the CNBC report, just highlighting just the investors, looking at these inflation reports, trying to see about this bear market rally. Yeah, even Elon Musk today, he said, oh, well, the vibes are off, and like probably like thinking about laying off some folks at Tesla. So yeah, man, I mean, hey, it's funny. Been watching, it's been funny watching Tesla, stocks and all the problems that they've been having now, with considering Twitter and all these crypto problems, and it's just so like, I'm like, I'm here for it. I'm here for Elon Musk's downfall. And it's funny too, because like, when I was 14, 15, like when he was, really hitting this scene, like I was all like, oh yeah, okay, we'll go to Mars. All right, yeah. Because I was so childish and hopeful. I'm still that way in a lot of respects, but it's still just like, looking back, I'm like, oh, I mean, at least I grew out of that, but still it's just like, oh, cringe. But, yeah, I'm watching the CNBC, report on this, reading it, just about this report, and yeah, I mean they already like put this like disclaimer out about basically the Dow Jones fell. So let me see actually. Yeah, the Dow Jones is down by 348 points as of 3:50 p.m. June 3rd. So yeah, so just gonna read up on this little article here, and it's funny they have this the picture of a trader. I wish I could have recorded this, but they had this trader just like. I always love looking at the pictures of traders and just like their like reactions, because it's always just like it's hilarious. But right, so the key points that they point out, right? So they have their key points. The big report for markets on Friday ahead is Friday's consumer price index, which could show a continued trend that inflation has peaked. Investors are disappointed that the late May rally did not carry through for a second week of gains. The upcoming CPI report may be a catalyst for the market. Liz Ann Saunders, Charles Schwab's chief investment strategist, called the surge a quote a bear market rally, and said, quote, the sentiment environment is not universally bearish enough yet. So, yeah, and this is just move a little further, right? So they talk about this inflation peak, right? So reading the article, in the coming week, the economic calendar is relatively light. Consumer price index and consumer sentiment, both released on Friday, are the most important reports. May's CPI is expected to be just slightly cooler than April, and economists are expecting it could confirm that inflation has peaked. Art Hogan, the chief market strategist at National Securities, said year-over-year headline inflation is expected at 8.2%, just below April's 8.3 pace. Quote, if CPI comes in at or near consensus, I think investors could feel better, end quote, he said. Hogan said the market's late May breakout helped sentiment, even though stocks backtracked in the past week. Quote, investors are in a more constructive place, and that can carry through if CPI is anywhere near consensus or better, end quote, he said. And they also talk about just different key markers in, say, like used car markets, gas prices and food. Well, I mean, yeah, that's always been the marker, right? So while the S&P 500 briefly dipped into the bear market on May 20th, it has not closed with a 20% decline from its high. However, Saunders said the current situation is the equivalent of a bear market based on the sharp declines in individual stocks. Saunders does not yet see signs that would indicate stocks could turn higher, though. She says there is a scope for more sharp rallies. Quote, I think the sentiment environment is not universally bearish enough yet, she said. She said sentiment and behavioral measures need to show extremes. Right. And now I was talking about these key markers, right? Diane Swonk, a chief economist at Grant Thornton, said CPI will be affected by the jump in gasoline prices in May. Used car prices and food costs could also be factors, she added. Quote, everyone's hoping for this peak inflation, but it may be more elusive and less of a peak than people would like it to be, Swonk said. So, yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, who knows? Who knows? And they still got, let's see, I believe they closed. I think they already closed. Oh, wait. So anyway, yeah, it's not looking good, the economy right now. Yeah, we're down. So we're going to have to see Monday. So we could get a Black Monday situation. Who knows? That might not be good. But yeah, that's kind of just the situation with the economy and just consumer prices, and just, yeah, people are starting to feel it. Of course, I'm certainly like hearing people telling me, like, I'm making these calls asking for donations, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I like the cause, but it's just these gas prices are too much. And these calls are especially coming from like California, like yeah, that's people are definitely going to feel it there. So I mean, Texas, the lowest that I usually go for is 419, and that's pretty high for Texas. Like now I have to put basically $10 in just to get, because like literally I'm living day by day, like because like I got paid today, and then I immediately had to pay rent, and I'm still overdrafted, so I have to wait till next week or the next payday, and dude, and it's just like, and then immediately it just goes down the drain, and like I can't even register for my classes. I have like a $2,000 hold on my thing, so it's just like, dude, fuck, my goodness. And of course, if I ask for help, it's just I get more ridicule and more yelling. But then if I don't register, I get yelled at. It's just like, bro, I don't know what else to do. It's just so bad. My life. But hey, I because I'm talking about money, and of course I have a Patreon. I don't want to go into that route, but it's just like, guys, like it's like those Twitch streamers, it's just like $5. You can't give $5. What are you doing with your? I don't want to be like that. It's just more like I just need the help. That's it. And I'm not even asking $5. I'm asking $1. That's all. That's all it is. And I want to put, I work so much, and I want to put more time towards researching. Especially, as I said, I want to do documentaries and essays. But it's just like I have a whole mountain of research, which is going to take so much time, and I spend all my time working. So it's like, yeah. So anyway, I mean, I just asked for that help there, in that respect. So you can just look Patreon for Collapse Talk. $1, 48-hour access. But again, anything helps, because as I said, I'm really in the trenches out here. It's not good, and I'm doing what I can. As I said, I'm working, but then they have these fucking weird technicalities. Oh, you see, because you didn't get one in 15 calls, so we got to send you home, despite the fact that I'm still like getting in like 10 calls at least a shift. Just dude. So anyway, yeah. So we're just talking really about, that, but then also, of course, with recent tragedies and the, ever so common elementary school shootings. That's something that we're having to deal with out here, especially in Texas. It's a very personal situation for us. Well, I mean, I say us because I'm not really like a Texan. I don't really identify with the Texan like identity, but it's still really sad. And yeah, man, this creep, this guy just went in and shot these kids, and now, of course, we're having this gun control conversation, which is understandable. I understand that people are concerned about guns, but it's like the Pandora's box is already opened. I don't know. It's just I wish I could live in a country where I don't feel like I need to have an AR-15, but that is unfortunately not the case. It's really not. Okay, and then also like it's not even like because there's the gun control debate, and like I've been talking about registries, and I've been talking about trainings, and I've been talking about age restrictions. I mean, an 18-year-old shouldn't just walk into a store alone to buy a gun. Like that should not happen. There's just so many things that I've been talking about, but of course, like people just want to go straight to the ban and confiscations without like any inkling of what that's going to do. Like, dude. Like that's not going to work. First off, it's not. It's just not going to work because you're asking for trouble. Because millions of people are going to take up arms. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Okay, and secondly, you're making the assumption that police are going to do that like evenly and universally instead of like just targeting minorities, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They might just like, oh, well, we're going to deputize these civilians, so they are a reservist, or some weird technicality so they can manage who has those guns. Like, and then Canada just now they just passed a ban on handguns, some weird like freeze on handguns, and so it's just like, and then liberals are also celebrating that. So liberals were trying to say that no, this is only going to affect long rifles and assault weapon, military weapons. It's still like I don't agree with that, but I can understand why you would want to do that. I can understand that. I don't agree with it, but I can understand. But now they're celebrating the handgun ban and the and confiscations of that as well. Now we can't reason. Now I can't talk to you because now you just don't want me to be armed, because even though I completely demonstrated through trainings, through a lack of a criminal record, everything that I've shown, that I'm a peaceful person, a law-abiding citizen. Hell, half the times I don't even conceal carry. Like, I really don't. Like, I don't even feel comfortable having a gun on me. I usually just leave it in the car. Not even that. But it's still just like, oh no, because you could snap and you could do something bad. So we have to make sure that you're unarmed. It's like, do you really think that's what happens? People just live normal, peaceful lives, and then just one day they're like, I'm going to shoot a baby in the face. Like, wow. Like, dude, like, everything that's coming out about this guy is like, oh yeah, he was, threatening like women who like didn't want to have sex with him. He was like, he would go into parks and try to pick fights, and he would hurt cats. There's like literally a video of him with like a bag of dismembered cats. And like, I don't know who took that video, because it's like one of those like late night teenage, like, just like, adventures, which like, okay, fine. But they were killing cats. That's fucked up. And they got to find those people who were taking those images with him. Like, dude, like, yeah, there should have definitely been some kind of red flag or some kind of background check that showed that this kid is not safe to have a gun. And yeah, like even his sister, apparently he went to his sister and tried to convince her to buy a gun for him. It's like, bro, holy shit, man. It's just crazy. They always think, oh, it just came out of nowhere when there's so many indicators for it. Like he basically was just saying like, yeah, I'm going to kill kids when I get the chance. It's just like, wow. And then, people, they want to put me, not even like for violent behavior, just because I get a bit sad and anxious and stressed out, like that is an indicator of potential mass shooting. Like, holy shit, man. Like I posted on Twitter talking about this reaction that I got from my family when I did. Again, I don't want to make this about me. I'm just sharing my experience, okay? But it's more like I bought the gun, and then I was trying to release the news slowly. So I first went to my sisters. I went to my sister and my stepsister. And it was kind of a test too. I was doing it to see, okay, who's going to snitch? So I can't really be, upset at the reaction. But it's just like, holy shit, man. I was trying to be transparent, and then that was the reaction I got. And then, of course, my father's just like, because he has a new wife now, and then his wife thinks I'm a communist. Well, I am now. Back then, I wasn't, but now I am. and then it's just like, and it just snowballed, and then, okay, well, we're not going to support you anymore. And of course, everything got worse for me because I wasn't getting the support, because everybody thinks I'm buying bullets, when really, I'm buying camping equipment, survival stuff for a natural disaster, right? And then, like, and then we get a blizzard. So all of this preparation and all this supposed, spending that I was making that was just, unneeded and unnecessary. Wow, all that spending that I was doing paid off and it saved my ass. It really did. Like, I can't really, like, illustrate how glad I was that I didn't listen to these people, because I took my own survival into my own hands. Like, my situation was secured. Once my water situation was secured, I went to my neighbors, tried to see if they were okay. Like, I literally made like a fire for one of them, this lesbian couple. And like, of course, they weren't there to see that. So of course, they're not going to like, oh, well, dude, I'm so glad I wasn't stuck with those people. Anyway, okay, I'm getting off track because like, I want to talk about this Uvalde stuff, but it's just like, this national conversation of gun ownership is really dividing people, because what's happening now is that gun owners are being put in this group of the danger, the threat. It's like they're, they don't see the black people with guns, or the Asians with guns, or the queer, trans people with guns, or women with guns. People who truly are under attack on a daily basis and need to make sure that their defenses are secure. And they want to disarm these people right now, when you have state legislators passing these anti-LGBTQ laws. They're like, basically like denying treatment for children for hormone therapy and transitioning. And now supposedly Florida made it so that Medicare wouldn't cover transitioning treatments. And now, it's basically going to go to forced detransitions and stuff like that, because you see what happens, man? It's always like these people normalize this state violence. And they normalize state violence, they normalize economic violence, but of course, no, the little people right? The workers, we just have to live with that, right? We just got to live with all this violence. And anytime somebody speaks up, not even with violence, somebody just goes out into the street with a sign and says, this is bullshit, they'll have a cop macing them. Or it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, a lot of these liberals aren't even pretending that we are in a fascist system. They're basically saying it's a fascist system, but hey, there's nothing really you can do about it anyway, so shut the fuck up. Like, that's kind of what it's turning into now. But anyway, because, like, I want to talk about, because this Uvalde thing is, like, of course, really upsetting me, mainly because of the police response, and especially now that they're covering their ass. Like, this is fucking infuriating. I don't understand why they haven't disbanded it. That whole the police department. Holy shit, why hasn't the FBI just gone in and just, like, wow. Like, if there's any case, because I'm not, like, an advocate for the feds or, the FBI, but this is the one instance where, hey, this is where your job is supposed to be, like this is where you can do your job. Like, a lot of leftists would support the FBI intervening here. Holy shit, man. But anyway, so I want to talk about this Uvalde incident and just, like, reports about this this freak, who shot these kids. Wow, man. And, like, it's just typical fucking edgelord, fucking just basement dweller, right? And there's some reports been coming out about, his family situation and, like, his dysfunction and substance abuse and, like, okay, like, that's messed up, and, I certainly, like, relate with that. But, dude, there's a difference between being born into a shitty situation and just being an outright psycho, like, serial killer. Because, because, again, like, I've had pretty dysfunctional situations, environments. I've never had to kill a cat, right? Like, I've never hurt an animal. Dude, holy shit, man. But anyway, because a lot of people want to say that stuff. They want to, they want to play, because, people are nice and they don't want to be all hateful. So it's like, well, you see, because this kid, he was born into circumstances. I get that. But, people can be in a low point, right? And have some dark thoughts. Absolutely. Especially if you're born into circumstances you have no control over. But once you act out on it and start hurting others, then it's inexcusable, okay? Because there's certain actions that I'm not proud of, not, like, to this degree, of course, but, like, there's certain actions that I've done are inappropriate, that have ruined my reputation. I have to live with it. I'm not proud of it. People could certainly come out against me and cancel me, whatever. I get it. I'm owning it, but it's still just, like, it's inexcusable. Even considering all the dysfunction and toxicity I've lived around and that I've had no control over, like. Yeah, anyway, so just talking about this guy and just talking about his incident, his shooting, because he was kind of, like, performing it. Like, it was like, yeah, to him it was a performance. When you're reading from this testimony from survivors, they were saying how, okay, so just reading from NBC News, right? So survivors of the Texas elementary school shooting are recounting the gunman's eerie final words of, quote, "good night," and, quote, "we're all gonna die," before opening fire, and some played dead to be spared in the spray of bullets. Like, dude, like, these kids just went into straight survival mode. Like, what did they've been watching Rambo or something? Holy fuck, they just do what to do, cover yourself in blood, play dead. Like, that is fucking crazy that they figured that out, like at that age. Like, 4th graders, 2nd graders, holy shit. And they talked with this 4th grader named Maya Cerrillo, and they're saying, and she was saying how she was watching Lilo and Stitch before the shooter walked in. Like, so now every time she's going to see Stitch, she's going to have images of her friends and her teachers getting shot. It's just, this is tragic, man. This is so, dude, like, I feel like crying right now reading about this, man. This is so sad. And it's just like, and of course, it's like, oh, you want your guns and you want children to die. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want this to happen. Okay? I'm not against a gun ban for the same reasons that these NRA idiots and Ted Cruz and all these other dickheads want it. Okay? Because the NRA and these Republicans, they live in a culture of violence and abuse. They do. So they don't want registries for animal and domestic abusers. They don't want red flags and background checks. And of course they're getting pocketed money from these gun manufacturers who, like, they are happy that they're like they just want whatever, all the guns out in the street. I need to watch Lord of War, because like that's basically like what it is, because all these arms dealers and manufacturers, it's all a huge business, and they're all in each other's pockets. And yeah, man, and also it's just hypocritical, right, to hear liberals saying that they want a gun ban, but then like military aid towards Ukraine and arming and training Nazis, just either complete silence or like actively celebrating it and getting us further entrenched into World War III. Meanwhile, they also want to instigate a civil war. Just holy fuck, bro. Holy shit. So anyway, as I said, this girl, she watched Lilo and Stitch, and this gunman, he walked in and he looked the teacher in the eye and said good night and shot her. And then just reading further, Mia told her story through a CNN producer. She did not want to speak on camera and declined to speak to any men following her experience with the school shooting, and only felt comfortable speaking to women. Wow, man, this is so sad. It's just so sad, man. Yeah, okay, and she also goes further, right? After firing shots in her classroom, the shooter went into the adjoining classroom and opened fire, Mia said, and she said she heard sad music playing, believing the gunman put it on. When asked what the music was, she said it sounded like "I Want People to Die" music. Wow. Mia said that when the gunman went into the other room, she smeared a friend's blood on herself to look dead. She also said that she and the friend grabbed their teacher's phone and called 911, telling the dispatcher, "Please send help because we're in trouble." Yeah, this is just... wow, man. Yeah, this is just... I just... so tragic, all this. And I mean, again, like, it's just... I want to... yeah, man. Yeah, it's just... you have no words. And like literally, like I was in the middle of a call, like doing this, doing my remote work, and I was in the middle of a call, and then I just saw the notification, school shooting at Uvalde, Texas. I'm just like, okay, and then I just went about my business, because it's just like another one. All right, yeah, man. But of course, in this instance, what makes it more tragic is the police response, the incompetence of the police response, because their stories, they've changed it so many different times now. Like even the Texas DPS, the State Department of Safety, the public safety, they're saying that something's not adding up and that they're changing the story. Like even Governor Abbott, like even he was like incensed because like they changed the story so many times. So it is so obvious right now that the police response is incompetent and that they're covering something up. And even supposedly there's like this leaked, because I mean they say now that there's like 18 minutes missing on the police dispatch, and they're saying like that there's like a little clip where somebody can hear a child over the line or over the radio, and the child has said, "I've been shot," and then somebody off screen says they shot a kid, by they meaning police, because I mean, it's just like, dude, and like I fully believe that they would have shot a kid because they're that fucking jumpy, fucking idiots. My goodness. And then like, so it's been their story has changed so many different times. Like apparently like there was 3, like he had body armor on, and then now it's just like, well, he had a vest but no plates on, and then they said like, well, a teacher left the door open, but now it's been shown that the teacher tried to close the door and didn't fully lock. And then like they had like tactical teams on scene. So first off, the first people to engage the shooter, at least 3 cops were engaging the shooter, and then they went inside to engage him, and he shot at them and they retreated. And this is just crazy to me. Like 3 well-trained, like say 3 well-trained cops could definitely hold off a lone gunman with pistols and suppress him until backup can get there. Because like there's so many different videos now of them like securing the scene, and they already have guys in tactical vests, and they have the helmets, and they have long rifles and AR pistols and shotguns there. And this is like the community police, not tactical like federal police there. And like they just didn't go in. They just cordoned everything off, and of course like like so many conservatives now are going to be saying like, well, because you see, they had to go into crowd control because the parents were acting hysterically. The parents were acting hysterically because the police weren't doing anything. That's why they were. My goodness, man, bro, this is like border town, like Southwest Texas, okay, like this is a small town, okay. Even like the left-leaning Democrat types, they're packing heat too. So like, yeah, a couple of dads could have definitely got their own guns and shotguns and pistols, whatever, and gone into that school to save their kids. They would have done that in a heartbeat, okay? Not that they were qualified to do it, but the motivation is there, right? These cops didn't do it. They were just like, oh no, because there's a gunman and I don't want to get shot because, you see, because I have kids. It's just like, bro, that's your job. Oh my God. And yeah, and then this was mainly the local police because a tactical federal response team was there. And they were also told to stand down. And there was like at least like almost like 40 minutes where they had tactical federal teams ready and they told them not to go. And like what was coming out now, supposedly there was an off-duty border patrol agent there who lived in that town. And his wife and daughter were in the school. His wife was a teacher. So like they were in the school actively like being targeted. And so he was at the barbershop. He grabbed the barber shotgun and went there, and he was part of the team that killed the shooter. Like, bro, and they just went in without the orders. They just went in. It's fucking crazy, bro. Wow, man. Holy shit. Like, that's literally like, you know, you might make fun of like John McClane type movies, John Wick movies, where it's like, oh, wow, yeah, conveniently, they went to go visit the Statue of Liberty right as there was a terrorist attack. Wow, how convenient. But still, like, but in this instance, it's like, no, like, this guy's family is like literally like being targeted. So even though like he's a Fed, so I don't really like, I probably would not want anything to do with him, you know, just being a Fed. Like, okay, like you're protecting your family, like that I can respect. As a man, I can respect that. So it's just, wow, man. You know, you see certain shit that hits the fan, like politics and ideology kind of go out the window in instances like this, because now it's just about the kids. We got to save the kids. Yeah, so I'm reading from the Texas Tribune, and so they have a bit of a timeline ready, available. And so they kind of just go a series of events. And it's not just like the timeline of the shooting. They also kind of go into earlier reports as early as September 2021. And so what they said here in September 2021 was that the shooter was asking his sister to buy a gun for him, and she refused. And then March 1st through March 3rd, 2022, the gunman sends a message on Instagram about guns. On March 1st, the shooter discusses wanting to purchase a gun in a group chat on Instagram and another Instagram chat on March 3rd. Someone tells the shooter, "Word on the street, you're buying a gun?" The shooter replies, quote, "Just bought something right now." March 14th, gunman makes Instagram post. Gunman makes an Instagram post with the caption, 10 more days. A user says, "Are you going to shoot up the school or something?" The shooter replies, "No, stop asking dumb questions and you'll see." Investigators didn't specify what the post consisted of. March 16th through 20th, shooter purchases guns and ammunition. The shooter turns 18 and the legal age for purchasing a rifle in Texas on May 16th. The shooter then legally purchased 2 AR platform rifles from a local federal firearm licensee on 2 days, May 17th and May 20th. He also buys 375 rounds of .556 caliber ammunition. And supposedly people were asking, how the fuck did a fucking dropout, because he was a dropout, a burger flipper dropout, how was he able to get that much? Because that's a lot of money, shit. Dude, I can't fucking do that shit. Like, what? I barely had like 100 rounds of .556, and this guy got 375. Apparently, he got it on credit. And then it's just like a payment plan. Like, oh my God. This is what I mean too. We also have to like weed out these fucking irresponsible just gun manufacturers and these dealers. Because like, oh yeah, there's nothing suspicious whatsoever. Oh, this kid just turned 18 years old. And like the thing too is also like, because when I go and when I try to buy guns, I'm never like shy or quiet. I'm very upfront. I look the guy straight in the eye. I try to be I try to present myself in a very confident manner. So it's not as though I'm like some antisocial recluse. So, but I highly doubt that he was like that with this kid was like that. I highly doubt it whatsoever. So how the fuck did this guy not just figure out something's off here? How is this kid, this just like literal child, 18, coming in here for 2 guns, buying all these rounds of ammunition? He can't even afford it. Oh yeah, I thought these guys were all about money up front. No, you got to do it. Get your money up front. Oh no, yeah, let's do a payment plan. Okay, well here you go. Well see, because here's the APR percentage. What the fuck, dude? Wow, man. So yeah, and then May 24th, 2020, which is the day of the shooting, around 11 a.m., shooter sends Facebook messages. The shooter sends private Facebook messages to a girl in Germany he met online and tells her about his plans to shoot his grandmother. The gunman shoots his grandma in the face, who then calls police. The shooter steals his grandmother's vehicle and drives from his home to Robb Elementary School, which is about 2 miles away. 11:28, the shooter arrives at school. The shooter crashes the vehicle into a ditch near the school. He fires his gun at 2 male witnesses who began approaching the crash from a nearby funeral home. The witnesses flee and call 911. Oh man, why did he fucking, this kid was just like on a rampage. Holy fuck, man. Like what just went off in his head? I mean, of course, everybody's going to start thinking that now. What went off? What happened? What's his reasoning? Like, what the fuck, man? He was probably just in this headspace of like, I was born, because again, they talk about his dysfunctional upbringing now. Like these details are coming out now, so it's like one of those kids, and I know I kind of fell into that hole too sometimes. Not like I'm gonna murder people to get back. But it's like I'm born into a shitty situation, and I'm just miserable, and these people are constantly alienating me and vilifying me. So you know what? Yeah, here's your bad guy. Yeah, you want a fucking villain? Here it is. Maybe that's his reasoning. I don't fucking know. Still, man, it's just like, this kid just wasted his whole life. To fucking kill babies for what? There's no reasoning behind it. There's nothing. He's just a monster. But holy fuck, man. Again, like, they were talking about him hurting cats. Apparently he decapitated a cat in front of his mother. Whoa, dude. So anyway, 11:30, a teacher calls 911. A teacher at the elementary school makes a 911 call reporting the crash and seeing the shooter, noting he has a gun. The shooter walks toward the school, climbs the fence into the parking lot, and shoots at the school several times. 11:31, shooter walks through the school parking lot. The shooter reaches the last row of vehicles in the school parking lot, firing his rifle throughout. The police arrive at the funeral home. A school district police officer speeds in the direction of a person they think is the man with the gun, reported by the teacher, but drives past the gunman and heads to the back of the school, mistaking a teacher for the shooter. Holy shit, man. Imagine if they shot the fucking teacher. What the fuck, man? Right. 11:33, shooter enters the school. The shooter enters the school through a back door. He shoots at least 100 rounds into classrooms 111, 112, which are connected. Authorities originally said a teacher left the door propped up, but later said a teacher closed the door and the automatic lock failed. And then they have a little map of the school, 111, 112. 11:35, Uvalde police entered the school. 3 Uvalde police officers rushed to the same door that the gunman used to enter, which was closed. They enter, receive grazing wounds from the gunman. They retreat. Later, 4 more officers, including a deputy with the Uvalde County Sheriff's Office, entered the school. So, as early as 11:35, there were 7 police officers at the scene inside. 11:37, gunman fires 60 more rounds. 11:43, Robb Elementary and Uvalde police post on Facebook about the active shooter situation. 11:44, police officers are inside. Police with the city of Uvalde and the local school district are inside. They hear gunfire and are shot at. Move back and get cover. Quote, initial officers are there, receive gunfire, therefore do not make entry. Officers call everyone in the area for additional resources, tactical team equipment, specialty equipment, body armor, precision riflemen, and negotiators. They're evacuating students and teachers during this time. And this is Victor Escalon, a DPS official. So 11:51, more police arrive, more law enforcement arrive at the scene. 11:54, onlookers start filming because the police are on scene and the parents are there on scene, but they kind of don't really see much of a initiative because there's so many different pictures now showing up where the police are kind of just well, this sucks. Like, they just have this attitude, like, they're just like, oh, well, this sucks. It's just like there's no urgency. 12 p.m. Police continue to arrive. A student calls 911 from inside. 12:10, student calls back. 12:13, student calls 911 again. 12:15, so here is where the tactical team is on scene. So 12:15, okay, the actual guys that they've been calling for are on scene, ready to respond. And they have shields, okay? Yeah, they have shields, so I mean, like, they're ready to do this. 12:16, student calls 911 again. 12:17, school announces active shooter on campus. And parents, of course, start at this point freaking out because, like, they're not really sensing the urgency. 12:19, another student calls 911. 12:21, gunman fires again. 12:36, student in 111 calls back. 12:43, gunman shoots the door. 12:46, the student calling says, I can hear the police next door. 12:47, please send the police now, from the student. 12:50, the Border Patrol kills the gunman. And this was, of course, a team that acted on its own initiative, okay? They just went in because the local police told them not to. So they just went in. And supposedly, they had to use a janitor's key to open the door. I read somewhere that they actually had the employee open the door. I don't know if that's completely true, and I don't want to believe that because that's extremely irresponsible. But holy shit, I mean, this is a police we're talking about here, so it's not that hard. 12:51, children are moved out. 106, police announce shooters in custody, although he was already dead. So, yeah, so that's everything there. So, yeah, man. And that's just the story that we have now. We're never going to know the full details of everything because this Uvalde Police Department is in full damage control mode. Like, they're not even cooperating with investigators. Like, they're threatening, they're harassing journalists now. They hired bikers. You know, this they have these Gardens of Children bikers, which, like, you know, they're for a good cause, you know, because they go to trials for children who have been abused, so they can give them, like, some safety and security. But still, you know, they're, you know, working with police supposedly to protect the families, the grieving families. Oh, well, we're just asking you to respect the distance, but really it's so journalists don't hassle the police because the police feel like they're under attack. I don't know why the parents have not, like, the community hasn't disbanded that police department. They have to go, all of them. And the FBI has to seize all the records. But yeah, holy shit, man, this is so bad. Like, this is not good. And, you know, again, like, because some people, of course, want to chime in and they want to say, well, I mean, it's in the heat of the moment. You know, it's just you can't. Because, of course, I'm a civilian, right? So I have no way to comment, no right to comment on combat situations, active shooter situations, right? Meanwhile, there's so many different law enforcement officials and ex-military guys saying, no, like those three officers could have done something. Like, if they couldn't have neutralized him, at the very least, they could have suppressed him. Or, you know, also I'm looking at this map here, right? And so I'm assuming they had, guys covering the doorways. But these schools, right, they are supposed to have windows for fire escapes, right? So I'm just curious, and I'm looking at the map of the school, and so it does appear that the different the classrooms that the gunman was in did have windows. So it's just curious to me that they didn't have another team covering that to ensure as much enfilade as possible, so that the gunman wouldn't have, it's just like there's so many different things that they could have done. Like, they really could have done. It's just so bad. So bad. This is just, it's so messy considering this kid who did all of this, but then also the police response. And, I think this is one of those situations where, like, not just this incompetent response, but everything before this. Because, again, this is like small town, like border town, Texas. And these police departments are crooked as fuck, bro. They really are. I wouldn't be surprised if they did some investigating that there's, like, some cartel stuff as well. Like, dude, it's just so bad. Oh my goodness. Like, because I had some friends that were from the Valley region, but, like, they were always talk about visiting the region, going back there, and it's just like, ooh, because I'm not a native there, and I feel like I would have to bring a passport or something, because if some Border Patrol agents want to pull us over, I mean, they're going to start asking, well, are you a citizen? Because that's what they do out there. So, yeah. Anyway, that's, I'm going to read some more, too, because that's the timeline. But then also, there's also the police response, and they keep changing their story. They've changed their story like 13 different times. Insane. Oh, my goodness. So I'm reading from the BBC. Police in Texas have revised key details about Tuesday's deadly school shooting as criticism mounts from parents over the initial response. The gunman roamed outside the Uvalde school for 12 minutes before entering unchallenged, police said on Thursday. That contradicted earlier statements which said the attacker had been confronted and shot at by police. He killed 19 children and 2 teachers before he was shot dead 90 minutes after he arrived, police said. That delay, combined with video footage showing frustrated parents being tackled and handcuffed by police while the gunman was still inside the school, has led to growing public anger and scrutiny of the early response. It has also called into question claims by State Governor Greg Abbott, who earlier this week hailed the quick response of valiant local officials who he said engaged the gunman before he entered the school. Quote, they showed amazing courage by running towards gunfire. My goodness, they did the literal opposite of it. Oh my god. Oh, dude, this is so bad. Like, they can't even hide it. They're really not even hiding it. At least the state, officials are. Wow, man. Because, like, there's supposedly, like, one of the state senators was asking for, reports, and the district attorney, like, denied it. So it's like, dude, that whole city is, like, trying to cover their ass. Because there's probably a lot of dirt that they don't want to surface up. Holy shit. It's like in Batman, Gotham City. It's just like, dude, like, there's so much dirt. So everybody has to protect each other's ass. But, like, it's a school shooting. So, like, the whole eyes of the nation are on you. Like, dude, what the fuck? Anyway, so a new timeline was given at a news conference Thursday by Texas Ranger Visker Escalon, who repeatedly said that he wanted to clear up previous statements. He defended the police response and spoke of the emotional toll the shooting had on officers. We're all hurting inside, he said. Wow, it's just, dude. Officials were due to speak again on Friday amid criticism and further questions about why 18-year-old Salvador Ramos was inside the school for more than an hour before he was killed, not by local officers, but by a tactical team led by U.S. border agents. As I repeatedly stated, they acted on their own volition. They did not have any orders to go in, so who knows how long they would have waited. Wow. Mr. Escalon said Ramos crashed his vehicle nearby at 11:28, with the first emergency call coming 2 minutes later as witnesses reported a man carrying a gun. Ramos then shot at members of the public, roamed the school premises, and entered freely through an unlocked door at 11:40. Police arrived on scene 4 minutes later, Mr. Escalon said, but it was unclear how close they got to the gunman or whether they attempted to enter the classroom where the shooting took place. Police initially said the officers were inside making an entry and took cover after coming under heavy fire. This was revised on Thursday by Escalon. Quote, they didn't make entry immediately because of the gunfire they were receiving, he said. At 12:45, the gunman was shot dead by a tactical team led by an elite Border Patrol tactical unit. Mr. Escalon played down previous statements by police that there had been an ongoing exchange of gunfire during the previous hour. Quote, the majority of the gunfire was in the beginning. So there was no like skirmish or any kind of like, it was just, yeah, they just backed off and they let those kids die. They did. Wow. It's like, dude, like the whole point of law enforcement training, like good law enforcement training, which, let's be honest, they don't do that. Like, you look at all the requirements for police academy, and like there's some like places in Europe, like say Finland or the UK or something like that, where like you're still on probation for at least maybe 2 years or so. Like, dude, it's like, what the fuck, man? And yeah, and again, their policing is not based on just fucking, oh, let's just go in and shoot whoever's in our way. It's like actual community policing. Well, I mean, they also try to ensure, well, not for the UK, but let's say Finland, right? They actually try to ensure that material needs are met and healthcare and, social services can meet people's needs. course, it's not a perfect system. I'm not saying it isn't, but I mean, shit, man. Every marker of violence and like radicalization and just like instability and mental health issues, like it really kind of points towards material conditions. It really does, which of course we don't have in the U.S. Right? I mean, there's plenty of countries with gun ownership and they don't have this level of mass shootings. I mean, shit, man. Like South Africa, I mean, it's a pretty violent place, but they don't have mass shootings on this level. Like, dude, what the fuck, man? Anyway, witnesses have said police were hesitant to confront the killer, and videos from the scene showed officers gather outside while being urged by desperate family members to storm the building immediately. One mother told the Wall Street Journal that she was briefly handcuffed and accused of impeding a police investigation after demanding, along with other parents, that officers enter the school. Angeli Rose Gomez said she saw one father thrown to the ground by an officer, another pepper sprayed, and a third tasered. Quote, "The police were doing nothing," said Ms. Gomez, who was eventually released. She said she jumped over the school fence and ran inside to rescue her two children. The police were just standing outside the fence. They weren't going in there or running anywhere. They say they rushed in, Javier Cazares said, whose daughter Jacqueline was killed in the attack, told the Associated Press. "We didn't see that." Quote, "A lot of us were arguing with the police. Y'all need to go in there. Y'all need to do your jobs." Their response was, "We can't do our jobs because you guys are interfering." Yeah, because the parents are freaking out because nobody's doing anything. So, wow. So, yeah. It's just a really tragic situation. But, yeah, man. The police response and the children and the parents, like all of them are in a pretty bad situation, just trying to get through this. But again, yeah, it's just tragic the way that we're in this position. And of course, people having commentaries now about culture and our issues. And yeah, it's just like, of course, nobody deserves to get shot in these mass shootings. Of course not. I'm just speaking more on a macro level. We have a system that inherently dehumanizes people, vilifies anybody who doesn't meet expectations. Like, there always has to be an other. And certain people are in a position where they're not really in control of their circumstances, and all they've ever had to live with is ridicule and disrespect and just outright dehumanization, really. And then, it's not like, of course, if they act out on that, because I mean, you're not in control of the cards that you're dealt with. Of course, you're in control of your response. But, dude, like, it is far more likely for people that who have been like shamed and disrespected and just constantly under stress and under attack, trying to like not get in trouble, trying to stay fine, and trouble keeps coming their way over time. That's really going to mess people up. And yeah, unfortunately, we, for this kid, of course, like, he was already a fucking psycho, like threatening girls and stuff like that, killing cats. And yeah, I mean, you read stuff like Chris Dorner, right? I mean, people would like to characterize him as a mass shooter, but Chris Dorner, he tried to abide by the rules, and like, he got fucked. So then he had to retaliate because he got fucked. He did everything he could by a system that basically just wanted to ruin his life because he spoke out against, racism within the police force. And this is also my point too, because when we're having this conversation about guns, again, it's always, just call the police. Just call the police. After all that we're seeing with this police response, you seriously believe that, like, they're going to be able to handle a threat that comes your way? Do you think that? You think that's what their job is? Or rather, to just, if something happens to you, they just come and secure the scene, and then, sucks for them. Like half, like there's a report that came out, like almost half of like murders like don't even get solved anymore. Like what do you think the first 48 is? Like 48 hours, and they're kind of just like, well, that sucks. Yeah, man. When you normalize a society and a culture that is just, that always wants to step on people, always wants to attack down, eventually there's going to be retaliation. Not that it's justified, but it's going to happen. Because, again, the dehumanization is like a cycle. It really is. Yeah, man. I was mentioning Chris Dorner, too. I was reading his manifesto. Well, not reading it. I was hearing an audio reading of it. But in his manifesto, he's just going on and on about the police and his experiences, and not just his experiences, but also like racism within his personal life and him trying to do the right thing and him still being attacked and vilified and, being stepped over, lied. And it's like, dude, this dude is spitting, man. I'm just like, yes. And then like towards the end, he's just like, man, I'm going to miss The Hangover. I want to see Chris Christie as president. I'm like, no! I'm like, why? But I mean, this is a guy who went to the military and like he wanted to be a cop. So I mean, like he was already kind of like on the conservative side, but it's more just like, oh man, it's just like close but no cigar. Oh, it's just like so. But as I'm saying, right, if you create a system that is just going to attack people, even though they're not even trying to do the right thing, after a certain point, there's going to be a violence from the underclass and from the bottom dwellers, I guess you could say, like Joker pilled, right? So anyway, because I know I'm treading on really thin ice here, but just reading further about this and this shootout that got him killed, the actual like border team going in to kill him. So from CNN, they were saying that he was hiding in a closet. So yeah, the teenage gunman, I'm reading from CNN, the teenage gunman in a Uvalde, Texas elementary school came out of a classroom closet and began firing when U.S. Border Patrol agents entered the room more than an hour after the gunman began his rampage. The agents were part of a team that fatally shot the gunman, ending an attack that left 19 fourth graders dead and 2 adults dead Tuesday morning. And here's a key important detail here, right? Before the assault on the shooter, a group of 19 law enforcement officers stood in the hallway outside the classroom and took no action as they waited for room keys and tactical equipment, a state official said in a news conference. I'm just curious, like, how did he get locked in there? I mean, did he lock himself in? I don't know if they made that detail yet, that either they locked him in or if he locked himself in. I can't really clarify on that detail, but that's just weird to me. Quote, the on-scene commander at that time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject, end quote. Texas Department of Public Safety Colonel Stephen McCraw said. The gunman was killed more than an hour after he started shooting inside Robb Elementary School. Members of a specialized Border Patrol unit had entered the classroom, with one holding a shield, followed by at least 2 others who engaged the shooter, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials. The gunman is believed to have waited for the agents to enter the room, then kicked open the closet door and began shooting, the source said. The agents used a key to get into the classroom, opening the door while standing off to the side since the gunman had been shooting through the door, the source said. The Washington Post first reported the detail on the gunman emerging from the classroom closet. The timeline of events that were part of the law enforcement response became clear and more disturbing to the victims' families, said Friday, as McCraw explained the school district police chief was the incident. Okay, so the school district police chief was the incident commander who made the decision not to breach the classroom door. What the fuck is some kind of like, why is there some school district official, like, why are they the commander of an active shooter, effectively a terrorist situation, a terrorist attack? Why is that the case? They had sheriffs, right? Why couldn't the sheriff or the police department? Why is it the school? This is so weird. Yet as officers stood in the hallway, children inside Robb Elementary School classrooms 111 and 112 in Uvalde repeatedly called 911 and pleaded for help. He said they were in the middle of the deadly school shooting since the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre. Quote, from the benefit of hindsight, I'm sitting now, of course, it was not the right decision, McCraw said. McCraw said of the supervisor's call not to confront the shooter, quote, it was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. So again, like anybody trying to cover this up saying, well, what were they supposed to do? Like, they are already admitting, and the police never admit mistakes, okay? So, like, this is so bad that they have to say that it was a mistake. It's so obvious and bad. And, of course, it's like the state official kind of just like, yeah, it's him. Like, they're just like, okay, like, it was that guy, this school district, security guard. Wow. The official, who was the school district police chief Pedro Arredondo, officials said Friday, Arredondo was nearly 3 decades of law enforcement experience, according to school district. I was recently elected to a seat on Uvalde City Council. He previously served as a captain at a school district police department in Laredo, Texas, and in multiple roles in the Uvalde Police Department. Arredondo has not spoken about the shooting publicly since 2 very brief press statements on the day of this tragedy. CNN attempted to reach him at his home on Friday, but there was no response. In all, 80 minutes passed between when officers were first called to the school at 11:30 to when a tactical team entered locked classrooms and killed the gunman at 12:50, McCraw said. The tactical team was able to enter using keys from a janitor, he said. Again, did they, get the actual janitor to open the door? I hope that's not the case. Holy shit. Within that period, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos killed 19 kids and 2 teachers, marking at least the 30th school shooting at a K-12 school in 2022. And while, as Texas Governor Greg Abbott said, the massacre could have been worse, of course, right? Oh, this could have been a lot worse. Well, it could have been a lot better. The law enforcement response suggests it could have been, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, yeah, and then they're also pointing out that even the governor is upset. Governor said he took careful notes from his briefing on Wednesday, calling that he had told the public a, quote, recitation of what people in that room told me. He added, quote, as everybody has learned, the information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate, and I'm absolutely livid about that. The governor was in Uvalde for a news conference about the state response for the families of those affected by the shooting, but reporters pressed Abbott on the law enforcement response and the information given to the public about the shooting. Quote, my expectation is the law enforcement leaders that are leading the investigation, they get to the very bottom of every fact with absolute certainty, he said. Yeah, so I mean, they gotta really go deep. They gotta really go after them. That's crazy, bro. But yeah, I know I'm talking a lot about this right now. I also wanted to just touch up on, I wanted to touch up on this NRA conference that happened literally the same week of the shooting. My goodness, man. It's just I don't even know, man. It's beyond parody right now, the state of affairs, beyond parody. Oh my god, dude. One of these days there's just gonna be a shooting that's not even it's gonna happen the day of, and there's just gonna be oh, well, that sucks. So yeah, reading AP News, just their take on this conference that they had, the NRA conference. It's really kind of just some cult meeting. It's just so weird. Again, the reasons why the NRA and these right-wing guys, why they want their guns, is explicitly to maintain the hierarchy that is rooted in white supremacy. I mean, there just seems to be an overlap between Trump voters and neo-Nazis and the NRA. What? This just so happens to be a coincidence. My goodness. Dude, think about it this way. Sometimes I'll post an anti-American meme on history memes. And oh my god, man, just the amount of downvotes you'll get just stating actual historical facts about, say, manifest destiny, right? And how that influenced the Lebensraum and Nazi policies, and I literally got downvoted for saying that Hitler advocated for settlement and the displacement of Eastern Europe. I got downvoted for that in the very same sense of homesteaders, right? Of course, you talk about the genocide of Native Americans, and then of course, when you talk about the genocide of Native Americans and manifest destiny, and then it's just and again, when you're on the subreddit, it's the immediate assumption is you're not an American, and then if you are an American, oh, then why don't you just go to China? It's just that's their first response. Why don't you go to China? Just leave. It's just dude, these people have no idea what's going to happen when people actually start leaving the U.S. They're going to be begging for immigrants to come back. Oh my god, dude, it's just so funny. Just leave. Yeah, hey, I would like to have healthcare and housing and food. Like, I want your children to have these things. Not because, you work, just because you're a living human being and you deserve it. Just inherently as a person. Oh, why don't you go to China? Just like, holy fuck, man. It's just so, again, and I'm trying to talk about the NRA, but like, just the state of affairs in America is just like outright open fascism, not even pretending anymore, okay? Because it's kind of like a gradual phase, right? First, and I feel this like reflected within my own family. It's just fucking crazy. At first, it's, no, you see, because we live in a free democracy and we have liberty and freedom. And then it's, well, you see, there's just naturally going to be corruption. And, people in power are always going to be abusing it. It's just going to happen. And then it's, yeah, no, this is just the way things are. You better shut up because I'm going to fucking report you to the feds. So, like, this is what it's turning into, man. Holy shit. So, anyway, reading from AP News about this NRA convention, right? So, reading. One by one, they took the stage at the National Rifle Association's annual convention in Houston and denounced the massacre of 19 students and 2 teachers at an elementary school across the state. And one by one, they insisted that further restricting access to firearms was not the answer to preventing future tragedies. Quote, the existence of evil in our world is not the reason to disarm law-abiding citizens, said former President Donald Trump, who was among the Republicans who lined up to speak before the gun rights lobbying group Friday as thousands of protesters angry at gun violence demonstrated outside. Quote, the existence of evil is one of the very best reasons to arm law-abiding citizens, he said Friday. And again, as I'm trying to say, like, I'm not saying there shouldn't be restrictions for certain people, and we have to have measures to identify them and basically prevent them from ever getting their hands on things. These guys truly want guns to be available to everybody as much as possible. And it's just so distressing to me when liberals put me in that group. Like, literally, if I'm just saying, hey, I'm a law-abiding citizen and I would like my AR-15, for hunting and defense purposes. Well, I guess you would like to have everybody to have nuclear weapons and landmines, right? It's just like, holy shit, man. Like, that's not what I said, dude. But then, like, you have somebody like Tim Pool recently. He said, he's just unironically like, no, you should be able to have a nuke. I'm just like, fucking, it's just, I feel so bad that I was actually, like, listening to him unironically. Like, as early as, like, 2020. I was listening to him during, like, the Black George Floyd stuff. But, like, it was more just, like, okay, because, like, I just knew who he was. So I was just like, okay, well, I probably need to balance my, my media and, hey, let me just listen to him because, like, he's I kind of followed his model, right? The independent podcaster, YouTuber, right? Media stuff. Because, that's kind of what he's famous for. And, of course, listening to him, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what are you talking about, bro? So, wow, man. So, anyway, the gathering came just 3 days after the shooting in Uvalde, and as the nation grappled with revelations that students trapped inside a classroom with the gunman repeatedly called 911 during the attacks, one pleading, quote, please send the police now, as officers waited in the hallway for more than 45 minutes. The NRA had said that convention attendees would, quote, reflect on the shooting at the event and pray for the victims, recognize our patriotic members, and pledge to redouble our commitment to making our schools secure. And by secure, they mean like a literal fucking bomb shelter, a bunker, right? Oh no, because there's too many doors and there's just too many windows, and we got to make sure that this doorway can withstand 2 tons of TNT. Dude, oh my god. And then they want to put more cops in there, because that's totally not going to do anything to reinforce the school to prison pipeline, right? Not at all. Oh my god, man. I'm homeschooling my kids, okay? I'm not saying, like, because of course, like, putting your children in those social environments is better for them, but these public schools are going to shit. They really are. So, and to be honest, I'd probably be a better teacher than most others. But yeah, man, holy shit. Okay, reading further. Wayne LaPierre, the group's embattled chief executive, opened the program with remarks bemoaning the, quote, 21 beautiful lives ruthlessly and indiscriminately extinguished by a criminal monster. Still, he said that, quote, restricting the fundamental human rights of law-abiding Americans to defend themselves is not the answer and never has been. Later, several hundred people at the auditorium stood and bowed their heads in a moment of silence for the victims of the shooting. Several thousand people were inside the auditorium during the speech, which appeared fewer than the number gathered outside. Many seats were empty. Yeah, a lot of people, pieced out on that, including the governor and several performers. Wow, man. And again, Wayne LaPierre, he's talking about human rights. He don't give a fuck, man. Because they're talking about, the human right of self-defense, but they want as many people armed as possible because then that's more money for them. So it's they're motivated not out of true concern for defense and true concern for defense and community organization, policing. That's not they want just every fucking nut job with the gun, because this is just rooted in the white supremacist heritage of just we just need our guns because these black people are getting uppity. I mean, that's literally what it is. It's just, that's what the heritage of it is. So, yeah, man. Fuck the NRA. Again, I'm an advocate for, I like having an AR. Well, okay. So I know I'm advocating for an AR-15s. I had one. But then, I went to live out on the road, crossing state lines. I just sold it so, because I didn't want to deal with legal trouble and police trouble. And then I had a handgun. And when I was in Albuquerque, I had car trouble, so I just had to sell that off. And so, I mean, yeah, whatever. I wasn't in a financial position to own it. But at the same time, I'm also not in a financial position to fucking get killed. So I have to defend myself, and I can't, get caught lacking. And again, too, it's just when I was trying to explain, you don't really need it for defense. And I was like, okay, sure, but I also like to go hunting because, there's wild boars out here. And I was trying to explain, I would prefer hunting for my source of meat because I don't really want to depend on this factory farm, foods and such and meats. And, oh, no, why do you want to go hunting? So it's I can't even go hunting because that's an issue now. Not even that I'm hunting with an AR-15, just hunting. Oh, you just want to go out and kill animals, huh? Despite the fact that I'm the one rescuing kittens and animals, literally they'll look at me and they'll just come up to me because I'm oh, what's up? It's just, again, yeah. So again, people, this fucking cat, I'm sorry, this cat is just crawling all over my hand, my leg. Stop. Stop it. No. Anyway, so yeah. So I'm going to wrap up with, just talking about domestic issues, gun issues. Okay, I'm going to put this cat away because he's literally clawing up my arm, my leg. Okay. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Oh man, this thing, I'm going to leave this in because it's kind of funny, but my legs are just all bleeding. Anyway, so now of course we're having the gun control debate and legislations and people talking about gun bans and such, whatever. Okay, so let's talk about this bipartisan effort that is growing, because I feel this shooting is so bad and so heinous, there might be some reform, maybe proposals, but of course they want to go straight to the ban. That's not going to work. Again, I'm here saying that there should be training restrictions, or there should be training courses and waiting periods for the long rifles and handguns. And I mean, and I don't mean that to be to create this bureaucratic, ineffective system so effectively people just never get around to getting approved. That's not what I'm saying. But there should be training courses. There should be waiting periods. There should be, I was thinking, because your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So, and I didn't get my rifle until I was 24. So it's just 18 to 25, 24. There should be a waiting period, probationary period, for certain rifles and handguns and such. Okay, so in that sense, it's not necessarily you're never going to have it, but rather you have to wait. Of course, a lot of conservative right-wing nutjobs are still going to, get upset about and uppity about that. But it's just why are you so upset if it's literally just a 7, maybe 6 year waiting period. If you want to get it, then you this is the period of time. Like if you say you want to get it, you have to go through an extensive course to finally get the approval. And then after 25, still again, you're going to have to go through a course. It's just not as stringent for 18 to 25 year olds, because I'm talking for handguns and for long rifles. Again, these are just proposals, and I'm trying to meet middle ground. Like, these are very sensible proposals, okay? Because I'm not saying that it isn't easy to get a gun. Like, when I got my rifle, I literally just went to the store. I just talked with the guy, asked him some questions. He did a background check on me. Of course, there's nothing on me. It's not even a traffic violation. So, okay, you're good to go. And I left. Yeah, it was pretty quick. That was pretty quick. I mean, and of course, this was during the lockdown. So, there was a little more urgency behind my purchase. But still, dude, whoa. I was literally just standing there, in my living room. I'm just looking at this thing. I'm like, that was too easy. It was. But anyway, so I'm reading from Washington Times. So they're talking about bipartisan efforts for a national red flag law. And so, I'm not entirely opposed to red flag laws, because, this kid, there's so many different eyewitness reports from this kid about his behavior, abusing animals. So in this instance, that should have been it. Okay, then again, sometimes, because there's eyewitness reports, but then sometimes people can't really they don't really follow through with it, because it's just he's just weird like that, and then stuff like this happens. So again, it's who knows again, killing cats, that's a pretty big marker for serial killer behavior. So I don't know why they didn't, I don't know how that hasn't been reported. But anyway, so reading from Washington Times, right? So lawmakers in both parties are exploring a national red flag law and expanded background checks in the wake of the school shooting in Texas that led to at least 19 children and 2 teachers killed. With tensions and partisanship surrounding the issue on Capitol Hill, few lawmakers believe any legislation can get the 60 votes needed to overcome a filibuster within the evenly split Senate. But a cadre of moderate Republicans and Democrats are working in hopes of finding a compromise that can attract sufficient support to become law. Quote, "I'm going to start having conversations again with colleagues on both sides of the aisle," said Senator Kristen Sinema, our lovely bipartisan, bisexual congresswoman. But anyway, Arizona Democrat, quote, "If there is a chance for us to do something to help make it safer for kids in this country, we owe it to the country to do it for real, not just talking points." Lawmakers hope that bipartisan consensus can form around expanding background checks for gun purchases in a national red flag law. The latter proposal would allow enforcement officers to remove firearms from individuals determined by a court to be a danger to themselves and others. Lawmakers hope that both proposals will be an easier sell to Republicans wary of primary challengers or crossing the gun lobby. And then they talk to Joe Manchin, quote, "There are a lot of solid things that will work, and we need to look at those and basically get a piece of legislation. We know that we can show we can be united to protect our children. That's the thing in a nutshell," end quote. And then, yeah. And they also point to, Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott, who, when he was governor, and he signed a red flag law, and he described it this way: "For people who threaten to harm themselves or somebody else, you could only go through law enforcement, and you can go through the courts, and it wasn't permanent." So, yeah. And there are red flag legislations in Florida and Indiana. So, again, they just pointed to the fact that, there are Republican states, red states, that do have these measures in place. They do. Because, why not? The issue, though, the one concern that I do have when they talk about red flag stuff is, who it's going to be applied to. Because, again, say a guy like myself, right? People are always talking about me and my mental health problems, whatever they are. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's a difference between I get sometimes depressed and lonely versus some psycho killing cats. That's not even remotely the same hemisphere. So I feel because people get concerned about mental health, but they don't fully understand it. And so there's a lot of this talk with mental health proposals, but it's very much like walking on eggshells, well, we got to do something because we don't know if they're going to snap and they're going to kill us. So it's more out of fear, not like actual concern to help people get better. And so with this red flag laws, again, like how exactly is that going to be enforced? And, again, I say some pretty inflammatory stuff about the situation that's happening with, the world, and people, of course, get, concerned about the stuff that I say because it's scary. I mean, yeah, it's a natural response to be afraid of what I'm saying. I'm talking about climate change and, extinction, displacement, and, the deaths and starvation of like millions, possibly billions within our lifetime. That is scary shit, and people don't like hearing that. But of course, that fear, because they don't fully understand abstract concepts, they have to attach it to the person who is telling it to them. And so since I didn't hear it on CNN, so I mean, you're talking this stuff, and now I can only assume that you're kind of, you want that to happen. Like, if I'm talking about, an apocalypse in the future, or an apocalypse that's actively happening right now, it's as though I'm celebrating it, and I kind of want things to fall apart, and it's just like, so who knows if a red flag like situation like that could be applied to me? Because again, it's very easy to just say, well, he's spreading conspiracies and misinformation. He's trying to be insightful. He talks about revolution, and you see, and again, whatever. I mean, I'm unarmed right now, okay, but I'm telling you, I'm not lacking, because like I literally sleep with like a spear right beside my bed. Like, I'm not fucking around, dude. Seriously. So yeah, and so they're also talking about with these gun control measures. So because there's this idea that all the Democrats are super anti-gun. They also talked to this senator in Montana, John Tester, and he said that discussing a ban on assault weapons was useless, especially since lawmakers were struggling to find support for something more bipartisan, like expanding background checks. Quote, "It's not going to pass if you can't get background checks." Quote, "Kids got killed yesterday, for Christ's sake. Let's talk about what can be done, not about what somebody wants." So like, again, you got liberals who want a gun-free society because there's going to be no violence, right? Oh no, because like we get rid of the guns, that's when the violence is going to stop. Then there's going to be no mass violence or any terrorist attacks whatsoever. And then, would you look at that? People are like killing each other with like bows and arrows and crossbows and like fucking machetes and knives, like they do in the UK. I mean, it's straight up medieval, like in these gang fights. Well, no more machetes, no more knives, no more axes, no more. It's just like, and then meanwhile, like they never address the material conditions that can lead to violence like this. Because again, we're stuck on mass shootings, which are tragic. But think about it this way: what's worse? A mass shooting that happens in a relatively peaceful area, so of course it's tragic and it just disrupts the whole piece of the area, or literal fucking gang wars in an area where there's just like people get shot up at Memorial Day, like barbecues, like in Chicago, like 51 people got shot over the Memorial Day weekend. Like, it's a war. Silence, and they want to take away more guns. So and they take away more guns from law-abiding citizens who can't respond to this, and of course you have to depend on the police. But in the police, they have like no-go areas because the violence is so bad, and so you're just stuck there with no guns, and you have to get them illegally, and you have to be carrying, and then you get pulled over, or you get stopped, and oh no, you got an unlicensed. Oh, here you go, I'm gonna ruin your fucking life now because you live in a war zone and you have to have something to protect yourself, but the laws won't allow you to have it. It's just like it's just so bad, especially in these big cities. Like, I honestly don't even want to go to like New York. I have a lot of family in New York, but like, dude, like it's like you can't even have pepper spray out there. They'll fucking hassle you. Like, holy shit. So I mean, that's an exaggeration, but still, like, if a cop found you with pepper sprays, they're going to be like, what you need this for? Like, it's, yeah. So that's what I want to talk about, at least with domestic gun issues. And, as I've been upfront about this online, I've had a lot of liberals and supposedly lefty people coming out at me or unfollowing me. It's just crazy. Like, I got called a conservative because apparently I'm a gun nut job, even though, like, I've only ever owned like 2 guns in my life. I don't treat guns as an extension of my masculinity, an extension of my dick, right? yeah, I don't use violence to secure my masculinity. But again, you got these people who have lived very easy, safe lives, who have never been in an environment that is like actually dangerous. And yeah, I mean, of course, they're just, yeah, no, I'll just call the police. Like, have you ever considered I don't want the police to be my bodyguard? Like, even if they could respond to a situation, like, thoroughly. Like, if I could call 911 and they can be on the scene within, like, 5, maybe 2 minutes or so, just hypothetically speaking, right? They're on the scene right as I make the call, and if they did handle it, even then, I still wouldn't want them, okay? They should only be useful. I want to be able to handle whatever threat comes my way. And again, this is not me like just saying like, yeah, no, go ahead, make my day. I'm not that kind of person, because like every time I've been to the range and every time I've had to pull the trigger, I have to tell myself, kill, and I don't like it. I don't like it, even in the most like righteous circumstances of self-defense. Like, I know that if I have to take a life to defend myself, that would really mess me up. It would not be a good thing for me. Like, because like I don't want trouble. I try to see the best in people, but again, like, I can't be caught lacking. So it's just, yeah. So it's just like they got to put you in this group with like all these like these nut jobs, like actual gun nut jobs, who are basically like just white supremacists and like Christian fundamentalists. Like, they got to put you in that group because now you're the other. Meanwhile, they're going to hide behind the police, the military, who would execute them if given the order. They would just round them up and put them away in camps enthusiastically. Like, that's who you want defending you? Like, okay. So anyway, now that I've said my piece, and I don't want to get too stuck up on this issue because it's very divisive. I'm just trying to have the leftist perspective on this issue. Because again, like Karl Marx literally said, like, the workers should not be disarmed. So I'm going to stick by that because I don't want to live under the mercy of the state. I don't. So anyway, and that's a pretty big portion of the program. It's like, yeah, over an hour and a half. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk more about international issues now, concerning our geopolitical backyard in an area of the world that is usually not known for being unstable and violent, but it's starting to change, and especially in Haiti. Well, specifically in Haiti, where what I'm going to discuss is just this situation can get bad. And I'm talking as I'm commenting on this Haitian crisis as a Dominican from the Dominican Republic, and so it's something that I'm going to have to pay attention to, because there could be a point where there could be some military intervention or conflict between Haiti and Dominican Republic. Now, when I say Haiti, it's not necessarily the Haitian state, but rather these gangs and bandits and these militias who basically just run the country. They just own the country. So Port-au-Prince is like effectively just cut off because all these gangs and these militias just are running it. And it's really distressing to me when I hear Dominicans commenting on Haiti, because it's so vitriolic and it's so fucking racist. Oh my God. It's just like so completely ignorant of history. And of course they're like, oh, but I'm not racist. Like they're saying all this racist shit, but then when you say, hey, you better check yourself, it's like, what? I'm not racist. You just don't care about your people. You're a traitor. It's just like, oh my God, dude, like seriously, I posted a tweet out. And I really just, all I said was like, well, I'm looking into anti-black racism. And so I have to look within my own community and my own people, because anti-Haitianism is a very real thing. It's a product of this brutal dictator, Rafael Trujillo, who was propped up by the U.S. Like, in a lot of ways, he's considered like one of the worst like dictators of Latin American history. So this guy was bad. And he perpetuated a massacre on the like frontier border regions, up to say like 40,000 Haitians killed. And the myth behind that story is that, because Dominicans are black, there's a lot of black Dominicans, even though we kind of want to brush that aside. So it's not easy to tell who's Haitian, who's black. Like literally, you could be black-skinned Dominican, no Haitian ancestry, and you will still get discriminated as a Haitian. It's not good. So in this time period, they were going to round up and try to basically massacre and displace the Haitians in that border region. And the test that they would have is they would hold a leaf of parsley or a twig of parsley, right? And they would say, ¿Qué es eso? What is this? And so the person who would say perejil, which is a Spanish pronunciation for parcel, they would be on their way. But then, of course, if they said like persil, I think that's the pronunciation, either French or Haitian Creole, or like perjil, like, because the H, the J has a softer sound, so they can't pronounce it as well. So they say perjil or something like that. Haitian, and they take you away. And so that's the history, and it's a very real thing that happened. And of course, even if you comment on that kind of history and racism from the Trujillo regime, even then, it's perceived as an attack against all Dominicans. Oh, no, ya tú sabes, mira. Yeah. So, I mean, I was commenting on anti-Haitianism on my Twitter, and these people I have no mutuals with them. So it wasn't like somebody liked it and then they saw it through the grapevine. Like, I think that they just they just Googled anti-Haitianism and then they saw my thing and they just immediately pounced on me. And it's so funny because, like, I literally said, like, hey, these are my people, my homeland, and, I have to, reflect on this and reconcile with it. And, like, literally multiple people were just like, you Haitians, we do so much for you, and then you want to complain about our actions. And it's just like, I literally just said I was Dominican, and you have to immediately, like, frame me as a Haitian because I was critical of our own people, like, stuff that I see on, like, pretty common. And then, of course, it's like, I corrected them, and I said, like, dude, you're a nationalist. Oh, so everybody who disagrees with you is suddenly a nationalist? I'm like, well, you kind of just jumped in to defend the nation, and, since you're not a nationalist, then obviously you're for integration, right? You're for, integration of our nations into one island nation. Oh, no, because you see, you just want Dominicans to be gone, right? Because, dude... and it's just completely devoid of any knowledge of our own culture. Like, where do you think Dominicans come from, dude? Like, we were indigenous peoples just hanging out, and then Christopher Columbus showed up, fucked everything up, raped all the women. So now they got a mixed population, and then they stole Africans, and then over 500 years, now we're Dominicans. And now you're so concerned about because we're gonna die out because Haiti's gonna conquer us, which they did historically speaking, but that was 200 years ago. It's like, why the fuck are you so hung up on the actions of a nation 200 years ago who will never be able to do that again? Like, they're not gonna conquer us. And then of course it's like, no, because they have a violent and incompetent history, completely ignoring that, like, it's basically like. Just because there was like a despotic dictator doesn't mean like 11 million Haitians are bad people, especially considering the actions of the U.S. and France sabotaging Haiti, basically like forcing reparations. And like literally the Americans, when they occupied Haiti, they just took all their gold reserves. And yeah. And then also, like, it's just funny when they talk about violence in Haiti. Oh, because they're violent people. They're so violent. Meanwhile, as I've been digging through Dominican history, we had to fight 3 different wars of independence. So we kicked out the Spanish in 1821. In 1822, the Haitians came in, conquered us, subjugated us. And I'm not saying that, like, it wasn't a good, like, it wasn't good what the Haitians were doing to Dominicans. I'm not covering that because, like, they were certainly abusing the people. So like, in that instance, sure, yeah, we had to assert ourselves and declare independence. Okay, sure, yeah. And then, like, we had so we had that revolt, that revolution of independence, and then we had basically a general just seized power, and he basically kicked out all the the politicians who were for the movement of independence, and then he brought back the Spanish, and so our people, Dominicans, had another war of independence to get the Spanish out. And I was reading somewhere like it was a fierce guerrilla war, like 70,000 Spaniards died. Like, whoa, holy shit. Anyway, and then so after declaring independence for the 3rd time and becoming a sovereign nation, the Dominican Republic, from like 1865 to 1879, was ruled effectively by these feudal warlords. They called them it's kind of interchangeable. It says concho primo or caciques, and caciques is a title for like chieftain or war chieftain from the ancient like Taínos. So they were called that, and or the broader term is caudillo, because this sort of thing happened all over Latin America. Yeah, just a local strongman who ruled over these regions, basically fighting each other. And if the government didn't rule in their favor, they would just rise up against the government and overthrow it. So I read somewhere like between 1865 and 1879, there was 50 armed uprisings and 21 governments overthrown. Wow. And then 1879, there was a dictator, Ulysses. I forgot his last name, but it was a Ulysses Hercule or something. And he was a bit of a strongman. He ruled for a couple of decades. Then he was assassinated. Then there was a bit of a liberal government under Cáceres, Ramon Cáceres. And he also got assassinated. And then there was more instability and violence, like in the 1900s, 1911, I believe. Like a whole civil war, same style. And I mean, these people had to fight with machetes. It was very feudal. My great grandfather, my paternal grandfather, fought in that conflict. So dude, and then of course the Americans came in, took everything under control, and then put Trujillo in power. So again, this idea, and then under Trujillo, so that was an incredibly brutal regime. Okay, as I pointed out, with the massacre, also with the secret police, basically they would just kill entire families if they felt like it. Like Trujillo, if he wanted to sleep with your daughter or wife, they would just send a guy to say he would like to have a word with your, so and so, and then he just had to let it happen. And then also they sent agents and spies all over the world. There were instances of a political dissenter in New York getting executed. They tried to assassinate the president of Venezuela. Dude, DR was not it's truly a terrorist state. Really. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't, again, because I'm talking about this history. I need to do a history podcast for Hispaniola, because that would be nice to cover that. Of course, I would have to do Haiti and DR, and people might get butthurt about that, but fuck it. So that's something that I will have to do somewhere down the line. But right now, I'm going to talk about Haiti, and really just about this crisis that Haiti is in, continued crisis. But yeah, it's reaching a tipping point, especially now with fuel prices and food prices on the rise, because this war in Ukraine is going to disrupt wheat supplies. I mean, they said we got maybe 10 weeks left before we really start feeling it. So, dude, this winter is going to be bad. It really is. So, reading from Al Jazeera. So, 12 years ago, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake devastated Haiti, killing an estimated 300,000 people, inflicting massive damage to an already impoverished Caribbean island. Since then, Haiti has struggled to rebuild among deep-rooted political instability and consecutive natural disasters, which has worsened the lives of the nation's 11.6 million people. During the years, thousands have fled in search of safety, work, and education opportunities. Quote, 12 years after the earthquake, we would think Haiti would have been in a better situation where most of the infrastructure would have been rebuilt, said Gerline Joseph, executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, an organization that assists Haitian migrants in the United States. Quote, but the situation has worsened, Joseph said, quote, because we have a country where the state has failed completely, where the citizens are not protected. Experts and rights groups have said the situation in Haiti has reached a crisis point as gang violence is surging across the country in the aftermath of President Jovenel Moïse's assassination last year. International observers are raising concern that February 7th, the date Moïse's term would expire, could bring more violence and further complicate the country's political transition. Al Jazeera looks at what has been happening in Haiti and the myriad of challenges Haitians are facing in the years ahead. So they talk about the president getting assassinated, which was a crazy story. I mean, there was several mercenaries in that group that were trained, but they were informants that were trained by the FBI and CIA. It's fucking insane, dude. And they still haven't figured that out. It's kind of just oh yeah, that's crazy, right? Hey, what's going on here? It's just what? They talk about just different political situations. And so they talk about new Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who promised to hold elections in 2022, but no election date has been set. So, yeah. In September, Henry dismissed the members of the Provisional Electoral Council through a presidential decree, further complicating the prospects of holding elections. His term ends in September 7th, what would have been Moise's last day in office. So if the election happens, what posts will be filled? Haitians will need to elect a new president and prime minister, 30 senators, and 119 members of the nation's Chamber of Deputies. Dozens of mayoral and local positions would also be up for grabs. So, yeah, this is a pretty bad situation for political situation. Yeah, so I mean that's what's happening here, and so I'm going to read a little further because that was a bit earlier. So this is more recent, the 28th of May, from France 24. Gangs, inflation, and political crisis bring Haiti economy to the brink. With gas sales already subsidized by the government at a loss, the Haitian economy, fragile with incessant crime and political instability, appears close to collapse as the war in Ukraine sends fuel prices soaring. And not just fuel prices, but also food prices. So this is really going to start pinching them. So the global surge in fuel costs comes at the worst possible time for Haitian authorities. Last December, they had the first time in 5 years made the highly sensitive move to hike the price at the pump, just 2 months before Russia invaded its neighbor. Still well below the global average, Haitians now pay 49 cents for a liter of gasoline and 84 cents for diesel. Unsustainable fuel. The state pays the difference to the oil companies, and that gap between what the government pays for fuel and what ordinary Haitians pay at the pump has become unbearably steep since the invasion of Ukraine sent world oil prices skyrocketing. Quote, this year, these fuel subsidies have increased by more than 200%, that is around 18 billion gordes, or more than 164 million euros, said economist Kesner Farrell. And they also talk about flour, right? Quote, this is beginning to affect the entire production of wheat-based goods in Haiti, like flour or pasta, which have already seen a more than 30% increase since the start of the war. Began in Ukraine, said Etzer Emil. Haitian households spend 60% of their income on food, according to the National Statistics Institute, and food insecurity already affected 4.5 million people here even before the outbreak of the war in Europe. Quote, this morning for breakfast, the children asked for bread, but we couldn't buy it. We replaced it with cassava pancakes, even if they don't like it much. I mean, cassava's it's a pretty good carbohydrate to have, but yeah, said Michelle, who lives in Port-au-Prince with her mother, sister, and 3 nephews. Quote, you can't buy as much rice as before. Besides, we don't have any and are thinking whether to buy more or not, the young woman said. And these economic challenges come as the Haitian authorities are in deep paralysis, with no institution having the legitimacy to initiate reforms. Appointed in early July, but barely 48 hours before the assassination of the late President Jovenel Moïse, Prime Minister Ariel Henry was appointed in early July, barely 48 hours before the assassination of the late President Jovenel Moïse. Prime Minister Ariel Henry has still not managed to bring together the political class to create a government capable of building consensus. A lack of elections has also reduced the Senate to a third of its size, meaning it can no longer reach a quorum to hold a session or vote on any laws. And I just realized I was saying Jovenel, or maybe it's Jovenel. And then also they talk about businesses and entrepreneurs fleeing to the Dominican Republic. So the criminal gang's foothold adds yet another obstacle to the recovery of the nation's economy, which has been in recession since 2019. More and more companies in difficult areas with great violence are closing up shop, leaving more people unemployed, said Emil. Haiti's economic plunge is, however, greatly benefiting its neighbor. Quote, dozens and dozens of Haitian entrepreneurs have already migrated to the Dominican Republic, and here in Haiti, they only just keep their shops afloat, said Gregory Brandt, president of the Franco-Haitian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Quote, over the 2021-2022 fiscal year, Haitians have invested $250 million in the Dominican Republic, he said. So again, all these nationalists in DR saying like, oh, because they come here and then we have to pay for their services and we have to do this and that. Meanwhile, they're investing $250 million into the DR, into our country. Like, and it's the same with like this rhetoric from these conservatives talking about migrants coming into the country. Meanwhile, like they are a tax base. I mean, they have to purchase and use sales tax and like, oh no, because they're not like, dude, like they're gonna purchase and they're gonna be a part of the economy. And this idea that we're like they're gonna be a strain, that's just so it's dog whistling. It really is. And they want people to just be completely against each other, right? They have this person was saying like, well, because you don't care about the left doesn't care about Dominican workers. They want these Haitians coming here and stealing their jobs. And I'm just like, hey, why don't we like help Haiti recover? Not because there's been like 8 efforts, but really it's just a money laundering scheme. Like there was a report that came out like they had like billions of dollars. It's not this NGO had billions of dollars and they were only able to build like 2 houses. And like these houses are barely even like they're gonna get blown over with the first hurricane that comes through. It's just like, dude, what the fuck, man? So yeah, so that's what's been happening. But now that I'm talking about the Dominican Republic, I'm going to talk about a certain incident that had occurred between a Dominican diplomat and Haiti. Supposedly this Dominican diplomat was abducted. I mean, they also abducted some missionaries earlier, and they got those people released. So this is what these gangs are doing. They kidnap high-value targets, and then they demand a ransom. And so, I mean, eventually they're going to kidnap the wrong person, and it's going to see like a true like Navy SEAL, like Delta Force response. Like, yeah, dude. So anyway, and I'm reading from Washington Post, and they're talking about this kidnapping, and they have pictures of these Haitian National Police, and they don't have iron sights. Like literally, they don't have iron sights, so they're just shooting with the rail. They're shooting and aiming with the rail. So yeah, no wonder these gangs are winning. The police can't aim. Oh my goodness! So much for military assistance. Wow, can't even get iron sights. Wow, man. Anyway, oh man. So yeah, so reading from Washington Post. The Dominican Republic is pressing Haiti to launch a, quote, immediate investigation into the apparent kidnapping of one of its diplomats in a neighborhood east of Port-au-Prince that has been wrecked by violent armed gangs that are increasingly tightening their grip on the country. Farouk Miguel Castillo, the Dominican ambassador to Haiti, told the Haitian Foreign Ministry that Carlos Guerin Tatis was thought to have been kidnapped Friday while traveling through the Croix de Bouquet area on his way to the Dominican border city of Jimani. The Dominican government said in a statement the country shared the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. Castillo called for the safe and sound release of Guerin Tatis, an agricultural advisor in the Dominican embassy in Port-au-Prince. Officials said Castillo sent screenshots of the last calls from Guerin Tatis' phone to Haitian authorities at their request. A spokeswoman for the Dominican Foreign Ministry declined to elaborate about the statement. With the Haitian government rent by disarray and division after the assassination in July of President Jovenel Moïse, violent gangs have stepped in to fill a power vacuum. They control large swaths of the countries and have orchestrated a wave of kidnappings for ransom that have deepened insecurity and alarmed its neighbor. No group has been immune from abduction. Priests delivering sermons, entire busloads of Haitians, foreigners, and even police officers have been swept up. Analysis says that police who aren't compromised by the gangs are increasingly outmatched and outgunned by them. Quote, the efforts of the police in recent months are obvious, but unfortunately they don't have the human, material, technological, and other means to fulfill their mission. The Center of Analysis and Research in Human Rights reported on March, Haiti is on the brink of an unprecedented human catastrophe and nothing is done. Croix de Bouquet, the neighborhood east of the Port-au-Prince, where Guerin Tatis is believed to have gone missing, is a stronghold of 400 Mawozo, a gang infamous for mass abductions, including foreigners. It had held French clergy members as well as American and Canadian missionaries with an Ohio-based charity last year. All eventually were released. 400 Mawozo had threatened to put a bullet in the 17 missionaries with Christian Aid Ministries if it demand for 1 million ransom for each victim wasn't met. Members of the group, which included several young children, were released in groups last year. The ransom was paid to free some members, the Associated Press. The ransom was paid for some of the members, the Associated Press reported. Yahon Doni, Gain Tatis' nephew, told the Dominican newspaper Listín Diario that he left Port-au-Prince for the Dominican Republic on Friday and that contact was lost with him on the way. He was traveling with another person who was detained and later released, family members have told the newspaper. Quote, they have told us that he is fine, that we should be calm, Doni said. Right, so again, they got this whole situation, so who knows how that's going to unfold, but it's a Dominican official, agricultural advisor, because Haiti right now, one of the main problems that they have is arable land issues, because when you look at DR versus Haiti, the reason why Haiti is so unstable, a lot of it has to do with deforestation that had occurred as a result of just, the French just went in there and they just cleared out all the land to build these sugarcane fields. And, of course, that's going to ruin the environment there. So, it really, people don't really, they don't understand that, the area has been cleared out. There's really nothing that can be done. It's kind of like a wasteland, but it's not because of the Haitians. Again, Haiti was the crown jewel. It was probably just one of the richest nations of that period because of its sugarcane industry, because that's what they had. Of course, when the Haitians took control, there was the mulattoes, and so there's a lot that goes into there. I'm not saying that Haiti is completely victimized because they got their own issues, but again, it doesn't even compare to the sabotage that and the reparations that Haiti was forced to pay towards France and towards the U.S. Yeah, so, and then of course we were talking about this Dominican, diplomat being kidnapped, and that could lead to political issues. Again, though, it's mainly to do with these gangs that have control over the country. But of course, because there's some dickhead, gang members and bandits, doing what they do, that's representative of the whole nation of Haiti. Even though our own country, DR, we got some pretty wild spots. It's not like Brazil or Mexico where there's literal cartels just in complete control of certain literal states. But if you make the wrong turn and you don't know where you're at, it can get bad. So again, people, they just it's really alarming to me how when you talk about the DR and our racism towards Haitians, people just get so mad. It's just dude, what did Haitians ever do to you, man? They again. So anyway, so that's that situation, and that's something that we have to pay attention to because it's in our backyard, and Haitian migrants are starting to get in our southern border, and they're starting to go through Florida, right? Pay attention, do we remember that whole photo shoot that happened where the Haitians tried to cross the river, and then you had border patrol agents on horseback just whipping them get. I just love how nobody could sit here this doesn't really, this kind of looks familiar, I don't like this. It's just so they're just completely lost with the irony. So anyway, so that's Haiti and DR, and that's something we're gonna have to pay attention to. And as usual, we've been talking about this war with Ukraine, and so so we just want to we're talking about this and this war, and so of course it has huge ramifications for the global economy, the food supply. We haven't even experienced the worst of it. This summer is going to get rough, and this fall and winter is going to be horrific. It really is. It's going to get bad, and they're already trying to figure out ways to get the grain out because it's just whoa, dude. So we have that going on, and of course I've been kind of because of course I'm not following this minute by minute. I was in the initial early stages, but now I'm just getting slowly reports on what's happening. So from what I can assess from it, it does appear that Ukraine is on the back foot, because Russia wanted a lightning campaign. They wanted a quick war. Their goal was like 3 days, right? The first 3 days, first week, 2 weeks, right? And they just got absolutely embarrassed, right? They just got, Ukraine pulled their pants down and just gave them a spank. Just get out of here, right? So they couldn't get to Kiev. The Ukrainians fought, bravely resisted. So in that respect, Russia failed in the lightning campaign. But now it's turning into a war of attrition. And of course, Russia, they will win that. They will win a war of attrition because they just simply have more soldiers to replace. That's really it. Like, they're just going to throw soldiers out there. They don't care how many die. They're just going to keep replacing it. It's just crazy to me because, like, Russia is going to come out of this, like, battered and bruised. And they're going to be like, see, guys, I told you don't fuck with me. It's just like, it's like when Steve Rogers, like, he's like, I can do this all day, but it's not really like brave or endearing. It's kind of like, dude, like, stop. Like, you started this fight. So yeah. So anyway, and again, I'm not trying to say that NATO is justified with like encirclement. And of course, like, I'm certain, like, of course, now I've been reading more about this current government and how nationalist and like tied to, real like Nazi ties, so that's not good either. It's not. Again, I don't understand why leftists are celebrating Russia doing this, because the Ukrainians are not going to be well off. But yeah, I mean, the leftists in Ukraine, they're going to probably be the first targeted. Like, this idea that they're actually genuinely going to denazify, it's probably not going to happen. If anything, they'll just let the Nazis who are okay with Russian occupation, like, they'll leave them alone, but they will certainly go after leftists. And like, I saw this meme where, like, it's just so crazy to me that people are actually making these memes. It was because Mariupol surrendered, and so that was where the Azov stronghold was, the Azov soldiers. And so, after the steel factory surrendered, people, of course, are just talking about like, well, you see, now they've been crushed. This is an embarrassing defeat. And I'm just sitting here like, dude, they held their ground and they were able to be a thorn in the side, and were able to basically hold up thousands of Russian troops who otherwise would have been free to move out of Kherson to Zaporizhzhia, or this, like, so again, I don't want to defend the Azov guys, but again, strategically speaking, like, they knew that they were going to lose. They knew that, and so the goal was to make the fight as long and hard as possible. Every inch, like 10 soldiers have to die for every inch, that sort of thing. And so, of course, now they surrendered and capitulated. And so I saw this meme, and it was a classic, Giga Chad, Soy Jack, meme. And so, of course, it was the Azov soldier as the Soy Jack, just like, no, you see, because this tattoo, it's just a joke. It's just ironic. And then they have the Chad, a Kadarovite, depicted as the Chad. And I'm just sitting here like, are we really celebrating these Chechen Kadarovites? The guys who are like hunting down gay people in Chechnya, who are basically like Nazis. Like, that's what they are. Like, we're gonna celebrate those guys. So yeah, man, I just like, dude, like, I've seen some weird takes, and I also saw some takes from people concerning this Bucha massacre that came out, saying that it was the Azov soldiers who perpetuated it. Meanwhile, they're in Mariupol, in the Azov region, and so, here, again, nothing's definitive because neither of us are on the field, okay? So, like, I don't know what's happening, but neither do you. But here are the reasons why I can believe the Russians perpetuated this Bucha massacre, right? So, for starters, you're moving into an area, so they sent these troops into these areas already with, like, supplies that are barely just non-existent. So immediately these soldiers have to resort to looting and pillaging just to eat and have basic supplies. I mean, they're like stealing like appliances and like underwear, because they're basically living in their own filth. Yeah. So supplies are compromised, which means that they have to loot and pillage, which naturally is going to break up the discipline of those troops. Also, Russia is kind of notorious for having a culture of abuse and hazing. So it's not hard to believe that abuse would be, unleashed on unarmed civilians, particularly civilians who are openly hostile towards you. openly hostile and scared of you. Also, like, your comrades are just dying left and right because these Ukrainians are fighting hard. They're fighting very hard, and they're using dirty tricks and ambushing you. Like entire convoys have just been wiped out, right? And yeah, I mean, and then now you're in a situation where you're in this village. Your food supplies, your supplies are compromised. You don't know if you're gonna get fuel or food, or you're kind of just like living in these abandoned homes. So you kind of just have to live the way that you need to live. They've seen there's been images of people, they would just get a pig or a dog and eat it. Like, they'll eat the dogs and the pigs. I saw another image where, like, literally, like, dude, this is just so bad. Like, there's been low points in my life, but I've never seen anything this low. They were just like straight up, they put ramen in this sink, and they just soaked the ramen and ate it out of the sink. And I'm just like, I'm just like, I've never seen anything this base and this low in my life. And it's just like, and so all these things are adding up. And so after a certain point, it's not hard to believe that these soldiers would crack and that they would take it out against the civilians. Because, I mean, that's the only, because they're already the enemy. And, I mean, your situation is so bad, and, you can't get the real enemy. So then you just target your civilians because, like, you have to take your rage out on something, right? But again, at the same time, I wasn't there. There had been reports that, like, the UK, like, denied, like, an investigation. So this is something that they're figuring out. But it's just like, this idea that these Russian troops are going to behave professionally. Because, I mean, again, our soldiers, like, barely behave professionally in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, like, we have bombed entire villages, man. Massacred entire villages, okay? So what makes you think that Russia is going to have that self-control or that professionalism, okay? Again, because I don't want to portray Russia as, like, completely incompetent and, like, they don't know what they're doing. But at the same time, like, it's a war. People are going to do shitty things. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm reading from Al Jazeera. And so they're commenting on this massacre. So, quote, "They were shelling all the time around the clock, and all the shells flew over my house," said Ole Matsenko, who survived 33 days of Russian attacks in Bucha, a once tranquil town northwest of Kiev, told Al Jazeera. Speaking 4 days after Russian troops retreated, he said he was particularly frightened when a column of a dozen tanks and armored vehicles slowly drove by, surrounded by infantrymen peeking into doors and windows of the house on his street. Quote, "The column was so big that it took them about 2 hours to drive past my home," he said. "Going out for food was a gamble," he said. Some of his neighbors left their dark, cold houses that had no electricity, running water, or natural gas supply to get bread or charge their mobile phones, but never came back. One day, he went to a market that survived the shelling to get food for himself and several friends and neighbors who flocked to his house, which was warmed by a wooden stove, and he saw bodies, mostly civilians, shot dead by Russians. Quote, "I saw it all, the piles of corpses in the street, all dead. I saw it all. They're still lying there. Not everyone was collected," said Matsenko Sev. His story confirms the scope of the mass killings of civilians that became evident and visible only after Ukrainian forces and journalists entered Bucha on March 31st. Russians sprayed bullets in all directions, firing at any movement in a street or window, at anything warm they saw in their heat visors, said survivors, officials, and the military. They shot anyone who resisted their presence, interrogations and lootings, or simply looked suspicious, they said. Decomposing under the warming sun, the bodies of men, women, and children were seen lying in the streets, sitting in the bullet-ridden, fire-damaged cars in which they tried to flee, according to photos, media reports, and officials. Several bodies were found inside apartments and houses with gaping holes made by shells and explosions. Some had their hands tied, some had traces of torture. Others were found in mass graves, barely covered with soil and garbage. Bucha's mayor reportedly said that hundreds of bodies have been found, and the count appears far from over. In Bucha, we have already buried 280 people in mass graves. The bodies of 410 civilians were removed from Bucha, the neighboring towns of Hostomel and Irpin, and smaller villages around Kiev, Ukraine's Prosecutor General Irina Veneditovka said on Sunday, April 3rd. So it is interesting to me that, because again, like, it only really appears that these kind of massacres happened around the Kiev offensive. So maybe what happened is, as they were retreating, because this mission failed. They got embarrassed, and they basically just have to retreat, and they look weak right now, and they take it out on the civilians because these civilians have been harassing them, or because they've been aiding the resistance, and so I mean it's not hard to believe. All right, duped by Kremlin announcements that said Ukraine needed to be liberated from neo-Nazis and ultranationalists, Russian troops found themselves among a stormy sea of hostile civilians. They resorted to killing adult males and raping women as the only way to, quote, suppress resistance and achieve a collective nervous breakdown. Quote, it was physical and psychological destruction of a will to resist. Yeah. So, again, it's really not that hard for me to believe that this happened. It really isn't. And again, I don't want to play into this rhetoric of, these orcs, these. I don't like that. Like, if I ever heard somebody doing that, I would shut it down immediately, because that's actual dehumanization, and that I sometimes when I go through these forums and I see combat footage and there's a dead Russian soldier, people are celebrating that, and that makes me very uncomfortable. Because again, even though what they're doing, that military campaign that they're a part of, it's wrong. It's it is a crime against humanity what's happening. We have to be very careful of celebrating dead soldiers and people, because it's just there's a disconnect. Because you don't know who this person was. A lot of these people are conscripts. They're conscripts. They don't have a choice. They have to follow. Well, again, I don't want to say just follow orders, but it's just it's very different than our current military system, where everybody's a volunteer. Although, of course, they kind of have conscripts through poverty, so it's not necessarily a volunteer per se, but it's still, there's a very different dynamic, and I just don't like it. Again, I'm a person who even if it's people I don't necessarily like, and I don't feel that we see eye to eye, it's I don't want harm coming to anybody. I don't want to see dead soldiers on the street, even if they're the enemy. I don't like that. So again, it's just again, because it plays into that Russophobia, the dehumanization, the whole these orcs, these it's not good. So again, you can support the Ukrainian resistance, and again, I am supporting the resistance, but it doesn't mean I support that government, and it certainly doesn't mean that I'm going to celebrate images of dead Russian soldiers. Because, a lot of them are probably super young, 17, 18-year-old kids. Dude. Yeah, man. War is bad, dude. War is never changes, man. And people are... It's just so strange to see the people who are clamoring for escalation. Again, people are still calling for a no-fly zone. It's just you throw that word around, and you don't really know what that means, because you heard it with Libya. So, okay, no-fly zone. Oh, well, we have to declare a no-fly zone. And it's just bro, that's war. That is World War III. So, anyway, that's what's happening on Bucha. And, of course, there are reports of Russian crimes and atrocities, rapes and murders. But it's a war, because there have been reports of abuse from Ukrainian soldiers against their own civilians. Again, there are basically lynch mobs, tying people up, and it's really bad, especially against Romani people, gypsies. I don't say gypsy, but man, it's not good. So anyway, that's the Bucha situation. So that's at least what's happening on the field, and we'll comment on some other military topics. But right now, I want to address last episode. I had reported on a supposed rumor there was a coup against Putin. Of course, it doesn't seem as though anything has happened to him. However, there is still resistance. There is resistance amongst the oligarchs, and there's resistance, slowly creeping up. So I'm reading from Newsweek, and they point out to these Russian officials, members of the Communist Party. So there's slight resistance, and of course there are those who are saying that the Communist Party is really just a nostalgia trip, because it's just basically controlled opposition. Yeah, so just reading from Newsweek. A Russian official who demanded that President Vladimir Putin end the war against Ukraine was branded a traitor, escorted out of a high-level meeting, and denied the right to vote, according to local media reports. During a meeting of the Legislative Assembly of Russia's Primorsky Krai in the far east of the country, a member of Russia's Communist Party's faction, Leonid Vasyukevich, appealed to Putin to stop the months-long war in Ukraine and to withdraw his troops from the country. Speaking on behalf of four party members in a rare critique of what Putin describes, quote, a special military operation, Vasyukevich said he and his colleagues had signed an appeal to the president. Quote, we understand that if our country does not stop the military operation, there will be even more orphans in our country, said Vasyukevich. Quote, during the military operation, young people who could bring great benefit to our country die and become disabled. He added, quote, we demand the immediate withdrawal of the Russian Federation. And they call them traitors, right, because they're speaking out. Because the nation, we have to defend the nation, right? So the incident, which has been described as a provocation by Russian state media, reportedly prompted a backlash from the region's governor, Oleg Kozymyako, who called the official a traitor. In response, the governor accused Vasyukevich for, quote, defaming the Russian army and our defenders who are in the fight against Nazism. A traitor, he said at the meeting. The region's legislative assembly then escorted Vasyukevich and his colleague Gennady Shulga from the meeting. They were both denied the right to vote at the session, reported independent Russian language news outlet Media Zona. The head of Russia's Communist Party faction also vowed to take tough action against Vasyukevich and Shulga. Their words discredit the honor of the party. Anatoly Dolgachev said, this demand, quote, this, quote, absolute démarche is not coordinated with the faction, he said. Vsevolod Romanov, chairman of the Legislative Assembly Committee on Regulations and Deputy Ethics, said Vasyukevich made the statement, quote, that we cannot support. Vasyukevich and Shulga, quote, grossly violated the regulations, deviated from the issues of discussing the agenda. We do not support his position, and I am sure that all deputies do not support this position. We are extremely surprised, Romanov added. It comes 3 months into Putin's war against Ukraine and weeks after Russia's parliament passed legislation imposing a prison sentence of up to 15 years for intentionally spreading fake news about Russia's military. Russia has put the law into practice to crack down against those who speak ill of Putin's war and a worsening of freedom of speech in the country. Newsweek has contacted Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Legislative Assembly of the Primorsky region for comment. They're the people speaking out, and of course, how dare you? It's like, hey, we should not get in this war because we're basically creating greater instability, and the economy. We're gonna embarrass ourselves on the world stage, and we're not really prepared for this. Our military is not gonna be in a better position, even if we win. Even if they win, they're gonna be all battered and bruised, dude. So. Yeah, and then they're gonna. So there's the invasion and the occupation of the country, and then there's going to be an insurgency. And this is not me particularly saying that I support said insurgency, because it would certainly be far-right extremists and these Azov sympathizers. But hey, man, it's what's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's going to be an insurgency. Are they ready for that? Even if they prop up a puppet government, they're going to have to keep Russian soldiers there. This is basically going to be I don't want to say Vietnam, but Iraq is just going to be an Iraq situation on your doorstep. Oh man, not good, dude, not good at all. But of course, they're sentencing people 15 years in prison for spreading fake news, quote, fake news, and and then of course, party officials are getting reprimanded pretty severely for even questioning it. So again, I just don't understand. I can understand leftists saying NATO's actions and this Ukraine government. I get it totally. Again, Russia has dropped the ball on this. There's really I don't know. It's just it's just kind of crazy to me. I don't know. Yeah. So that is, just some party oppositions and dissent that is starting to creep up and is certainly going to grow. Again, remember, this is for Putin. This is about securing his legacy. This is, he's a czar. Um, yeah. So again, like the motivations here are not denazification. It's pure imperialism and power. And again, I feel like a lot of people get hung up because we like to think that ideology is what motivates people. For a lot of people, sure. But ultimately, raw power, wealth, material gains, that is what's going to motivate people. That's what's going to motivate these nation states. So they talk about denazification, but they're not serious about that. This is just pure imperialism. It's just flat out. It's what it is. So anyway, we are talking about just this new state of affairs, and this war is really like the biggest conventional conflict since, let's say, the Iran-Iraq war. Maybe you can make that argument. Although since it's in Europe, it's more immediate. So of course it's like, oh, these white people are fighting each other. Oh well, we really got to pay attention. So yeah, so of course they are paying attention to, all the conventional powers are taking notes, and because this is kind of like a mini little preview of what World War III is going to look like, and all the different techniques and platforms. And yeah, it's again, before all these major conflicts, there's always a little tiny conflict that gives us a sneak preview into the wars that come ahead. So say like with World War One, you had the Civil War, which the European powers took very close eye on, like because they were just taking notes. This was like really the first major industrial conflict between two evenly matched powers, and I say evenly, sparingly, because it's obvious the Union was going to win, but still, like they had to. The European powers were taking notes because it's like, well, these Napoleon tactics don't work, and then also it was also reflected in with the Franco-Prussian War. Again, all the imperialist powers took notes, like, okay, and then World War One comes around, and they're still stuck with the Napoleonic mindset. Turns out, all that is out the window, and now they have to completely change their strategy on the fly in the middle of combat. And then also with World War II, right, there's other conflicts that led into that the powers took note on. So the Spanish Civil War, people taking notes on that, seeing how that conflict was about, especially considering the air superiority aspect. I'm trying to think of another conflict that happened during the interwar period. Yeah, that's all I can really think of. Oh yeah, and I guess Ethiopia and Italy, people were taking notes as well. Although it was still it was pretty disproportionate. But again, my point is really these conflicts that lead into greater conflicts, they're little sneak previews. So of course, our own our own military forces, they were taking notes, and we're trying to observe on specifically this Moskva sinking, that incident that was pretty significant. It's the largest flagship to be sunk since World War II. In fact, it's the first flagship in Russia to have been sunk since the Russo-Japanese War. So, this is a pretty significant incident. And again, chances are, they didn't get anybody out there. Of course, Russia's trying to cover this up, and families of these sailors, they're asking and for details, but they're kind of just like, well, no, he's at this base. Oh, can I talk with him? No, it's secret mission. No. It's just, wow, man. Yeah, and then I've seen some images of wounded soldiers and the reward that they give them. It's literally just okay, here's some olive oil and here's some bread. Good job. Here's a medal. Oh my God, it's just so, dude. Oh my God. So anyway, I'm reading from the Atlantic about this, and just what the Marine Corps has been reporting on, because again, they're taking notes from this and they're saying we need to change our strategy, and of course it's kind of creating a bit of a conflict. So reading from the Atlantic. On March 9th, 1862, the Union warship Monitor met its Confederate counterpart Virginia. After a 4-hour exchange of fire, the two fought to a draw. It was the first battle of ironclads In one day, every wooden ship of the line of every naval power became immediately obsolete. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. If the Battle of the Ironclad settled once and for all the wood versus iron debate, Japanese carrier-based aircraft settled the battleship versus carrier debate by sinking the cream of America's battleship fleet in a single morning. And I also want to comment, the goal of the Pearl Harbor mission was to get the aircraft carriers at Pearl Harbor. So of course they battled, they messed up the battleships, but the Japanese were after the carriers, which weren't there. And of course there's some people who talk about possible inside job stuff with Pearl Harbor, so who knows. But yeah, that shows, again, if the aircraft carriers were there and they were targeted and sunk, who knows how things would have turned out for America. So anyway, right. On April 14th, 2022, the Ukrainians sank the Russian cruiser Moskva with a pair of Neptune anti-ship missiles, and that success posed an urgent question to the world's major militaries. Has another age of warfare just begun? After 20 years spent fighting the post-9/11 wars, the United States military's attention is again focused on peer-level adversaries. The Pentagon hasn't been thinking this way since the Cold War and is attempting a profound transformation. Today, fierce debate attends this transformation, and nowhere more acutely than in the Marine Corps. In March 2020, the Marine Commandant General David Berger published Force Design 2030. This controversial paper announced a significant restructuring based on the belief that, quote, the Marine Corps is not organized, trained, equipped, or postured to meet the demands of the rapidly evolving future operating environment, end quote. That future operating environment is an imagined war with China in the South Pacific, but in many ways, that hypothetical conflict resembles the real war in Ukraine. The military we have, an army built around tanks, a navy built around ships, and an air force built around planes, all of which are technologically advanced and astronomically expensive, is platform-centric. So far in Ukraine, the signature land weapon hasn't been a tank, but an anti-tank missile, the Javelin. The signature air weapon hasn't been an aircraft, but an anti-air missile, the Stinger. And as the sinking of the Moskva showed, the signature maritime weapon hasn't been a ship, but an anti-ship missile, the Neptune. Berger believes a new age of war is upon us. In Force Design 2030, he puts in the following sentence in bold, quote, we must acknowledge the impacts of proliferated precision long-range fires, mines, and other smart weapons, and seek innovative ways to overcome these threat capabilities. The weapons General Berger refers to include the same family of anti-platform weapons Ukrainians are using to incinerate Russian tanks, shoot down Russian helicopters, and sink Russian warships. The successes against a platform-centric Russian Goliath by an anti-platform-centric Ukrainian David have elicited cheers in the West, but what we are witnessing in Ukraine may well be a prelude to the besting of our own American Goliath. Like its Russian counterpart, the American military has been long built around platforms. To pivot away from platform-centric view of warfare is both a cultural challenge. What does it mean to be a fighter pilot without a jet, a tanker without a tank, or a sailor without a ship? And a resource challenge. It asks the U.S. military, as well as the U.S. defense industry, to divest itself of legacy capabilities like, for example, a $13 billion Ford-class aircraft carrier, in order to invest in new, potentially less profitable technologies like, say, a $6,000 Switchblade drones that kills tanks. Divestment is central to Berger's strategic vision. Several months ago, he announced that the Marine Corps would reduce its size, several of its infantry battalions, aircraft squadrons, artillery batteries, and every last one of its tanks would go. According to Berger, the Marine Corps is, quote, operating on the assumption that we will not receive additional resources and, quote, must divest certain existing capabilities to free resources for essential new capabilities. As divest to invest has become the new Marine Corps' catchphrase, a bevy of retired generals has spoken out publicly against Berger in an unprecedented display of disunity among senior commanders. One of the dissenters is the former commandant, retired General Charles Krulak. Quote, you're divesting yourself of huge capabilities to buy capabilities that's still on the drawing boards, Krulak told me. We're being painted as a bunch of old farts who want the Marine Corps to remain as it was and don't understand the impact of technology on warfare. Nothing could be further from the truth. To discount Krulak's views would be a mistake. His tenure as commandant ushered in significant innovations for the Corps. He laid the intellectual groundwork that allowed the fighters to fight in the post-9/11 world. He also acquired the V-22 for the Marine Corps, a first-of-its-kind tilt-rotor aircraft that is both a plane and a helicopter. So it's like the Osprey, I think that's what we're talking about, which like is notorious for like cutting off the cockpit and collapsing in midair. Anyway, Berger's strategic vision is also the first of its kind. In the event of a war with China, it imagines a 21st century island hopping campaign in which bands of 60 to 70 highly trained, lethally equipped Marines would infiltrate onto the islands in the South Pacific to target the Chinese Navy with advanced missile systems and other long-range weapons. The war at sea, in Berger's vision, would be decided by a slew of Moscow-like invasions. The war at sea, in Berger's vision, would be decided by a slew of Moskva-like invasions. Berger's critics don't buy it. Quote, the assumption that Marines can get on contested islands without being detected and conduct resupply missions is unrealistic, Krulak said. Plus, you're underestimating the capabilities of the Chinese. The belief that these forces will shoot and scoot counts on Marines moving faster than Chinese missiles fly. You're going to lose Marines and be unable to evacuate our wounded and dead. The Navy won't sell in to get our wounded. Admiral James Stavridis, who spent much of his 40-plus year Navy career in the South China Sea, is a believer in Berger's vision. Quote, the Army of tomorrow will look like the Marine Corps of today, Stavridis said. What General Berger is doing is critical, end quote. A truism among Marines is that the Corps must be at its most ready when America is at its least. In the 1930s, the Marine Corps pioneered the amphibious doctrine that would pave the way not only for the island hopping campaign in the Pacific, but also the amphibious landings that allowed the Army to liberate Europe. Innovation, according to Stavridis, remains a core Marine mission. The debate in the Marine Corps is more profound than the internecine politics of one service branch. It's a debate about which form of warfare will dominate in the next decades of the 21st century, a platform-centric one or an anti-platform-centric one. Historical precedent abounds for these types of debates. Before the First World War, in the opening years of the 20th century, many militaries adhered to the cult of the offense, and a then staple belief that well-trained, determined troops would always carry the day over a defending force. In the Napoleonic Wars 100 years before, this had been proven true, but up against the 20th century's breech-loading rifles and machine guns, the offense had become the weaker form of offense. Tragically, it took Marne, the Somme, and countless other bayonet charges into the teeth of chattering machine guns for generals of that era to accept that their understanding of warfare was dated. Representative Seth Moulton, a former Marine and Iraq War veteran who sits on the House Armed Services Committee, believes that today's dissenting generals are failing to comprehend how much technology is changing the battlefield and how quickly the services must adapt. Quote, when you look at what weapons are on top of the Ukrainians' wish list, Moulton told me, it isn't howitzers. Top of their list are armed drones, anti-tank missiles, and anti-ship missiles. But what if Berger is wrong? What if his divest to invest strategy winds up overinvesting the Marine Corps in a highly specific vision of warfare that never comes to pass? According to Moulton, much of this comes down to the role the Marine Corps has traditionally played as an incubator for new ideas as the smallest, nimblest of the services. Quote, our country can afford to have the Marine Corps overinvested in a new type of warfare that never comes to pass, Moulton explained. What our country cannot afford is to have Marine Corps underinvested in a new type of warfare that does come to pass. Events in Ukraine seem to validate Berger's anti-platform-centric view of warfare. In much the same way, the World War I validated those who had argued that defense had been stronger than offense, but of course no form of warfare maintains primacy forever. Krulak made this point as we finished our conversation. Quote, we need to be careful we don't learn the wrong lessons from Ukraine. You have a great measure. The next thing you know, they come up with a countermeasure. So you come up with a countermeasure. One of the most famous countermeasures developed after the end of the First World War was France's Maginot Line, a physical shrine to the primacy of defense. What the French failed to account for was that in 2 short decades, certain developments, more advanced tanks, aircrafts, and combined arms doctrine had once again swung the balance, allowing offense to resume its role as the dominant form of warfare. The result was a German blitzkrieg in June 1940 that simply maneuvered around the Maginot Line. The wager that Berger and the Marine Corps are making in this anti-platform systems won't be an American Maginot Line, but the best way to save generations of Americans is from their own Somme or Moskva. So, I know I had to read a lot there, but it's really a pretty intense debate about the future of warfare. And of course, there's talks about whether we need to step away from these like grand, like, strategy, like, battle of Kursk type battles where there's just an iron front of tanks rolling over plains. Yeah, we're kind of like stepping away from that. So, again, like, it's not as though there's going to be no tanks or no jets, because they're still going to be there. But it's probably going to go back to more infantry-focused combat. Again, like, when you see these advancements such as ships and tanks and all this other stuff, it's more of a step to try to get away from infantry, because, again, like, commanders, they really don't want to send their troops in to those type of, they don't want to lose troops, and they don't want to risk losing troops. A good commander. However, that's just the ugly reality of war, because, like, you can't send tanks in without infantry support. You can't really have airstrikes without at least some, ground assets confirming the targets. And again, like, a ship, bombarding a city can only do so much. You have to send troops in to occupy it. So again, you need infantry, and so this is what we're seeing. We're probably heading more towards infantry-focused combat. And again, combined arms is going to be the bread and butter of modern combat. So, there's going to be armor, there's going to be jets and ships, just not to the same degree. At the end of the day, you got to put the troops in to weed out the enemy, occupy it. So yeah. And again, I'm not qualified to really comment on this. That's why I was just reading on it. But that's just my 2 cents, because I feel like it's just going to have to be a balance. But again, as they're saying, they can speculate all they want, but the best way to figure it out is through field experience and, unfortunately losing troops. But anyway, so that is what I wanted to speak on for now about international stuff. Yeah, this is a long episode. Holy shit. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up talking about some natural global issues, right? So anyway, right now, we're reaching into the summertime. Hurricane season is nigh. Actually, yeah, hurricane season started. So it's going to be an interesting summer. And they are expecting that to be an active summer. Before I talk about the forecast for weather events, the IPCC report is set to come out, or it has been released. And again, it's the same stuff. What's happening, we're in a kind of a crisis, red alert situation, considering with the environment and climate change. And it doesn't seem like anybody wants to fix it. It's kind of just ignored and swept under the rug, because, again, they realize that the way that we have to fix this is by addressing our, radically changing our economic system, switching our energy systems. And it's just like there's no will to do it, because it's going to pinch the pockets of certain billionaires, and they would just rather keep business as is instead of, saving the planet. Again, again, people are just not even pretending what's happening anymore. They're just like, well, if the world's ending, just focus on yourself. I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, literally, my whole family now is just like, yeah, well, there's nothing really could have done about it, so you just gotta focus on yourself. And it's just like, what do you think is gonna happen? Like, you think I'm just gonna have oh my god, it's just, oh man, yeah. Again, I'm kind of like past the point of trying to reason with this, because I don't want to talk about family anyway. It's just this a report from the UN, right? So I'm reading from Byline Times, and so what it's saying is that the UN is warning of total societal collapse. So this is really the first time they're saying, like, this is not good what's happening. So reading from Byline Times. When the United Nations published its 2022 Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reduction, GAR 2022, in May, the world's attention was on this grim verdict that the world was experiencing an accelerating trend of natural disasters and economic crises, but not a single media outlet picked up the issue, the increasing probability of civilizational collapse. Buried in the report, which was endorsed by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, is the finding that escalating synergies between disasters, economic vulnerabilities, and ecosystem failures are escalating the risk of global collapse scenario. This stark conclusion appears to be the first that the UN has issued a flagship global. This stark conclusion appears to be the first time that the UN has issued a flagship global report, finding that existing global policies are accelerating towards the collapse of human civilization. Yet somehow this urgent warning has remained unreported until now. The report does not suggest that this outcome is inevitable or specify how close to this possibility we are, but it does confirm that, without radical change, that's where the world is heading. Hello? Oh my god. It's just like, again, like, you like, it doesn't even matter, like, how, like, well-researched you are and, like, literal reports from the UN. It's just, like, people are in such denial, bro. Like, and, I haven't seen Don't Look Up. I don't have Netflix, and I don't want to ask people for it, but it's like, dude, like, what the fuck, man? It's just so bad what's going on. It's just, oh my god. So anyway, the UN is writing that. I mean, this is really the first time they're saying, like, civilization collapse. And so they're talking about certain environmental and ecosystem trends. They're called planet boundaries. And so it's all different factors. So what they're saying is that the planet boundaries framework was developed by the Stockholm Resilience Center in 2009 to provide what is called a science-based analysis of the risk that human perturbations will destabilize the Earth system at the planetary scale. This framework identifies a range of 9 key ecosystems which, is pushed past a certain threshold, will dramatically reduce, quote, the safe operating space of human habitation. The report notes that at least 4 of the 9 planetary boundaries now seem to be operating outside the safe operating space. While land systems change and climate change are in a zone of uncertainty with increasing risk of overstepping the safe operating space, the report says the biological flows and novel entities, quote, biochemical flows and novel entities, quote, new engineered chemicals, materials, or organisms and natural elements mobilized by human activity, such as heavy metals, have far exceeded that space. However, the situation is likely to be worse than acknowledged in UN reports. Byline Times revealed last summer, according to Professor Will Steffen of Stockholm Resilience Center, 2 more planetary boundaries, ocean acidification and freshwater use, probably by then also have been transgressed, meaning that we are breaching 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries. If we continue to cross boundaries at this rate, it is possible that we'll cross almost all of them before 2030. I make the argument we've already crossed it. Wow. Let's see. Thomas Cernev's paper identifies 4 potential pathways ahead, yet only one of them, Stable Earth, involves the achievement of goal targets under the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and Sendai Framework. All of the others are heading towards total collapse. Quote, in all of these scenarios except for Stable Earth, the achievement of global targets and accompanying frameworks is negatively impacted, the report states. Furthermore, in the absence of change scenarios, Earth under uncertainty and Earth under threat tends towards global collapse. The paper explains that by adopting a system analysis, it is possible to see how, quote, the crossing of one planetary boundary systemically results in the crossing of others. They are crucial to providing a safe operating space for human societies to develop within a stable Earth system, quote, with the passing of these boundaries subsequently and most likely resulting in a societal destabilization and potential GCR events. Global catastrophic risk, GCR events, are defined as those leading to more than 10 million fatalities or greater than 10 trillion in damages. The paper's worst case global collapse scenario, is described as the result of multiple planetary boundaries being breached, increasing the likelihood of GCR events that set in motion a sequence of economic and political breakdowns which further drive ecological collapse processes. In this scenario, quote, total societal collapse is a possibility, the paper warns. Quote, this scenario presents a world where planetary boundaries have been extensively crossed, and if GCR events have not already occurred or are in the process of occurring, then their likelihood of doing so in the future is extreme. The paper says, quote, in this scenario, the global targets have more likely not been achieved, and the resulting collapse of society in this scenario means that the future achievements of any global targets is unlikely, and a total societal collapse is a possibility. Disaster risk reduction has not been successful and disasters are common, with disaster events as well as GCR events such as pandemics increasing. Yeah, and then they're also saying here that it's supposedly this report has just been diluted, that it's actually worse, far worse, right? Right, so there are reasons to suspect that a collapse process has already started, even if it is still possible to rein in. A senior advisor to the UN Office of Disaster Risk Reduction and contributed to the Global Assessment Report, who spoke to Byline Times on condition of anonymity, claims that the GAR 2020 report was watered down before public release. The source said that the world has, quote, passed a point of no return, and, quote, I don't feel that this is being properly represented in UN or media as of now. Quote, the GAR 2020 is an eviscerated skeleton of what was included in earlier drafts. The UN GAR 2020 is a landmark document. It is the first time that the United Nations has clearly underscored the impending risk of total societal collapse if the human system continues to cross boundaries critical to maintaining a safe operating space for the Earth system. Yet, despite this urgent warning, not only has it fallen on deaf ears, the UN itself appears to have diluted its own findings. Like the fictional film Don't Look Up, we are more concerned with celebrity gossip and political scandals, seemingly unable or unwilling to confront the most important challenges that now faces us as a species. Either way, the UN documents showed that recognizing the risk of collapse is not about doom-mongering, but about understanding risks so we can make better choices and avoid worst-case scenarios. As the report acknowledges, there is still much that can be done, but the time for action is not after 2030, it's now. So, yeah, that is what is happening. And again, it's unfortunate that we're in this position that people are more concerned with. It's just crazy to me. Like I talk with people in my life, and it's not even like there's such a disconnect because like they know it's happening, but they're still going about their lives and still planning to have children and doing all this stuff. Like everything's going to be fine. And then the fact that I'm bringing it up is the problem. Not that we're just going through the status quo that isn't going to get anywhere, that's inherently suicidal. Dude, like, I'm truly afraid of a lot of these people when things start getting tight. I really am. Especially, like, my friends and family, certain friends and family, because, like, there's just a complete disconnect. And, of course, because I'm the one who has been talking about this issue nonstop, they have nobody else to blame except me, as though I'm the one who's orchestrated this. Like, I'm seriously, like, if I was in an SHTF situation, some climate disaster, I would seriously be sleeping with one eye open. Honestly. Like, I can't be here. And of course, they're going to say, well, you abandoned us. Bro, you guys are barely safe to be around during peacetime. And if you want me to stick around during a disaster? Nah. So, again, it's like, I constantly think about, the role that I would have to play in an SHTF situation, but I have to be working with people who aren't fucking psychotic, who I haven't, like I've seen you guys commit all kinds of violence, and then you want me to stay? You want me to stay only to just ridicule me and disrespect me and dismiss everything that I say? You guys want me to take initiative, and then once I demonstrate that, you perceive it as a threat. It's a threat to you that I just randomly learned how to survive in a blizzard type situation because I don't want to be useless during a crisis. You guys want me to take initiative and I demonstrate it, and you have to take it as a threat. So why am I going to stay when there's like an actual disaster that I've been preparing for my whole life? And you guys have always treated me as some kind of pariah because I pay attention and I read reports from scientists and, oh no, because you've been radicalized. Yeah, no, I've been radicalized by the leading meteorologists and scientists and biologists and all these people. Literally now the UN is saying it, and it's still like, no, you're the problem. So, okay, so I'm re-recording because I didn't realize this recording program that I used taps out after 3 hours of audio. So, it was kind of funny actually. I'm only telling you all this because there might be like a change in quality, but it's funny because like I was still talking, and then I just checked back on the recording, and then it's just like, oh yeah, it taps out at 3 hours. So okay, so I was talking about the UN report, and now I want to talk more about hurricane season and just weather events coming down the line. So I'm reading from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's website, and NOAA in their predictions and forecasts for the 2022 season. And so, of course, they're saying that this is going to be an above normal, weather season. So, really to do with La Nina, and having effects on ocean temperatures and jet streams and the such. So, reading from NOAA, forecasters at NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, a division of the National Weather Service, are predicting above average hurricane activity this year, which would make it the 7th consecutive above average hurricane season. NOAA's outlook for the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season, which extends from June 1st to November 30th, predicts a 65% chance of an above normal season, a 25% chance of a near normal season, and 10% chance of a below normal season. For the 2022 season, NOAA is forecasting a likely range of 14 to 21 named storms, winds of 39 miles per hour or higher, of which 6 to 10 could become hurricanes, winds 75 miles per hour or higher, including 3 to 6 major hurricanes, winds of 111 miles per hour or higher. So NOAA provides these ranges with 70% confidence. So again, that they're pretty on track with this trend. Like, it's just what a surprise. Every summer keeps getting hotter, and every summer these weather events keep getting more intense and more active and more frequent. What a surprise, man. Okay. Quote, early preparation and understanding your risks is key to becoming hurricane resilient and climate ready, said Secretary of Commerce Gina M. Raimondo. Quote, throughout the hurricane season, NOAA experts will work around the clock to provide early and accurate forecasts and warnings that communities in the path of storms can depend on to stay informed. The increased activity anticipated this hurricane season is attributed to several climate factors, including the ongoing La Nina that is likely to persist throughout the hurricane season, warmer than average sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean and Caribbean Sea, weaker tropical trade winds, Atlantic trade winds, and an enhanced West African monsoon. An enhanced West African monsoon supports stronger East African easterly waves, which seed many of the strongest and longest-lived hurricanes during most of seasons. The way in which climate change impacts the strength and frequency of tropical cyclones is a continuous area of study for NOAA scientists. And so they have the list for 2022, and so they go as listed: Alex, Bonnie, Colin, Danielle, Earl, Fiona, Gaston, Hermine, Ian, Julia, Carl, Lisa, Martin, Nicole, Owen, Paula, Richard, Sherry, Tobias, Virginia, and Walter. Yeah, okay, so what's going on? Quote, as we reflected on another potentially busy hurricane season, past storms such as Superstorm Sandy, which devastated the New York metro area 10 years ago, reminds us the impact of one storm can be felt for years, said NOAA Administrator Rick Spinrad, PhD. Quote, since Sandy, NOAA's forecasting accuracy has continued to improve, allowing us to better predict the impacts of major hurricanes to lives and livelihoods. Additionally, NOAA has enhanced the following products and services this hurricane season. And they go through different points, right? To improve the understanding and predictions of how hurricanes intensify, NOAA's Atlantic Oceanographic and Meteorological Lab and Pacific Marine Environmental Lab will operate 5 cell-drone uncrewed surface vessels or vehicles during the peak of the 2022 hurricane season and coordinate for the first time with uncrewed ocean gliders, small aircraft drone systems, and NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft to measure ocean atmosphere in areas where they meet. The Hurricane Weather Research and Forecast Modeling System and Hurricanes in a Multi-Scale Ocean-Coupled Non-Hydrostatic Model, which have shown significant skill improvements in terms of storm track and intensity forecasts, have been successfully transitioned to the newest version of the Weather and Climate Operational Supercomputing System, allowing for uninterrupted operational forecasts. The Excessive Rainfall Outlook, ERO, has been experimentally extended for 3 to 5 days of lead time, giving more notice of rainfall-related flash flooding risk for tropical storms and hurricanes. The ERO forecasts and maps the probability of intense rainfall that could lead to flash flooding within 25 miles of a given point. In June, NOAA will enhance an experimental graphic that depicts the peak storm surge forecast when storm surge watches or warnings are in effect. Upgrades include an updated disclaimer and color coding that illustrates the peak storm surge inundation forecast at the coast. This tool is currently only available in the Atlantic Basin. Quote, Hurricane Ida spanned 9 states, demonstrating that anyone can be in the direct path of a hurricane and in danger from the remnants of a storm system, said FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. Quote, it's important for everyone to understand their risk and take proactive steps to get ready now by visiting ready.gov and listo.gov for preparedness tips and by downloading the FEMA app to make sure you are receiving emergency alerts in real time. NOAA's outlook for overall seasonal activity and is not landfall forecast. In addition to the Atlantic seasonal outlook, NOAA has also issued seasonal hurricane outlooks for the Eastern Pacific and Central Pacific hurricane basins. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center will update the 2022 Atlantic seasonal outlook in early August, just prior to the historical peak of the season. So, right. So, I mean, they've been slowly improving forecasting and prediction systems. And yeah, this is they're certainly, looking out for what's coming this way this season. So it just pays to be prepared. I mean, of course, in the Gulf states, because that's where it's going to make landfall, then you got to watch out there. But these storm systems now are moving. Basically, they just move across the entire continent now. That's what it's basically doing. And so that's, even if you're in some place like, say, Tennessee, you could still deal with this issue, right? So again, it just pays to be prepared and ready for a grid down situation. As I said, I'm kind of financially tight right now, so I can't be as prepared as before, but I'll have to keep an eye out this summer just to see what comes this way. But hey, it's just interesting to me because I know that whenever a serious hurricane does come through, all my family members are going to be like, "Oh, you should come down to Houston. We need to be together." I'm like, no. Why would I want to be in the city during a disaster? Especially considering how easily that city floods. Oh my God. It's just like, I'm going to stay up here because this is the high ground up in Huntsville. So yeah, but we'll have to check it. We have to keep a close eye on that. It's crazy because it's like I'm trying to anticipate, okay, maybe there might be a drought sort of season this summer, dryness and fire, because we had a fire ban last month. So it could get to that point, or just excessive rainfall and flash floodings. So have to keep an eye out there. But anyway, so now that I was discussing with the hurricanes and flash floodings and raining, so within the eastern, East Coast, Gulf Coast areas, and then there's on the West Coast, there's dryness and forest fires and desertification, and so that's going to become a problem down the line. And so I read something, I just kind of caught a glance of this this ABC 7. It's kind of like a local news article from Irvine, California, and so it's concerning this teenage computer whiz, this 14-year-old inventor, and so he's developed effectively mini little detectors and sensors that can accurately predict in real time the spread of a wildfire, because these wildfires, they spread, those first opening minutes of it are the most crucial moments, but of course the firefighters can't get to it in that moment, so that's why they have to evacuate everybody, and they have to basically do damage control to make sure it doesn't hit urban centers. They basically just they have to let it burn out and just maybe protect the high value targets, and even then they have trouble with that. So this system, what is basically described like mini sensors. He describes it, and the inventor here is Ryan Honoré. He describes it as a wireless mesh network to communicate heat or smoke information to what he calls a mini meteorological station. Quote, with all the data that it's constantly receiving from all the detectors, it will predict where it believes the fire will grow, Honoré said. And the sensors are battery powered, so it's portable, battery powered. Yeah, this is a pretty good step. And then he also said that he wanted to update it so it can detect soil moisture, water levels, and even underwater oil leaks. Yeah, so it's a pretty good system that he's got going. And I like the, because there are times where I kind of look at this new generation, and I'm not one of these boomer types where it's oh, these kids, but sometimes I feel that way. I'm like, shit, oh man, It's not their fault though, because I mean, look at everything that's happening. Like, what are they gonna build off of? But you know, when you see stuff like this, somebody taking initiative and actually like developing a pretty important system, this is gonna save lives. So it's good to see that. It's hopeful to see it, right? Because I mean, he knows what's happening, so he's trying to do something about it, right? So that's good to see, and it's only going to get. He's only going to improve over time. I mean, there's an urban ranch conservancy. They're giving him grants and investments. So yeah, it's only going to get better from there. So there's that. This system that would allow for early detection of weather, of wildfires and the spread. So they've also shown a new study now, a new report from environmental research letters that showed that the top 10% most valuable homes in the western United States are 70% more likely to be in high wildfire hazard areas, which makes sense because with this white flight and there's boomers, particularly high income white elderly boomers, they like to move out to the more rural spots into the countryside because they basically created like an urban jungle with LA and the Bay Area. So of course now they want to move out to the quiet areas and look at the deer. That's so cute. Yeah, and then they just like bulldoze like acres and just like completely disrupt the ecosystem, and then they add these green lawns, right? Because I gotta have my green lawn. Just totally artificial, totally. But yeah, these people, these boomer suburban yuppies, trying to get away from the unwashed masses. Yeah, they're not safe from this either. They're not. So it's just gonna be so funny, and it's so funny too because like people like this, they truly believe that they have like a spot in the bunker. That is funny to me. It's so funny to me to see somebody who's like barely even like they got money, they got wealth, but it's not like fuck you money. It's not like I can buy a whole army money. Like exactly. So right. Researchers at Resources for the Future and Independent. I'm reading from ScienceDaily.com. Researchers at Resources for the Future, an independent research institution in Washington, D.C., use granular spatial data to study residential properties in the western United States and their relative risk for wildfire exposure. The team studied properties, location, value, community characteristics, and proximity to previous wildfires. The study showed that hazard and impact from recent wildfires are disproportionately borne by high-income, white, and elderly communities, and by owners of high-value properties. However, the research also reveals disproportionate exposure to wildfire hazard among the lowest value homes in the western United States and among Native American communities. So basically, whoever's living out in the boons, yeah, they're at risk for wildfire. I mean, naturally. But to me, it's just funny that the rich and wealthy are also getting affected. It's like, hey, you know what? We're on a sinking ship, and so are you. So anyway. Exposure to wildfire hazard often goes hand in hand with access to benefits like beautiful views, recreational opportunities, and proximity to nature. As a result, exposure to wildfires differs from other anthropogenic hazards such as pollution and waste facilities, which overwhelmingly affect vulnerable communities. In recent years, the western United States has seen a dramatic increase in wildfires because of climate change and past forest and fire management practices. Policymakers are weighing options for how to distribute the cost of wildfire suppression and mitigation across households in both low and high hazard areas. Quote, in spite of increased attention to the distribution of environmental and climate related risks such as across socioeconomic groups and its relevance to current wildfire related policy debates, the distribution of wildfire hazard was previously not well understood, comments Matthew Wibbenmeyer, lead author of the paper. Quote, wildfire mitigation policies that deliver financial assistance to high hazard areas could be subsidizing wealthy households. However, high wildfire hazard areas are quite heterogeneous, so addressing concerns associated with costs of increasing wildfire hazards may call for a geographically targeted approach focused on reducing the burden for the most vulnerable communities, adds co-author Molly Robertson. So yeah, I mean, again, a lot of rich people are in the path of this, wildfire phenomenon that's going to keep getting worse. So again, it's just going to be crazy to see, because these people, they don't have any like inkling of like self-reflection or like actual like, man, because like things are going to get tough, and then these are going to be the ones who are going to go like right to the fascist, basically like neoliberal types, because that's what California is. It's just a fascist neoliberal dystopia. Oh my goodness, dude. It's not. It's not a good place. But anyway, that's happening there, and we just got to pay attention to that. It's just crazy how, like, depending on different parts of the U.S., you have to anticipate certain natural disasters. Like, I remember there's like a famous tweet that's like, moving in the United States is basically judging which natural disasters you want to deal with. So it's just like, oh man, dude, it's just, yeah, man. Like, if I was in California right now, I'd have like a gas mask and all kinds of stuff ready for wildfire stuff. And yeah, man. So that's happening there. And then also, so there's the climate disasters and the climate change and, climate collapse that we have to deal with. But then also right now, we have to deal with pandemics. We have to deal with viral infections. That's going to be something that's going to increase through the years. Yeah, man. I mean, now, because we still have COVID, and we're getting new strains and all kinds of good stuff with that. Now we have a new pandemic. I don't even know if it's a pandemic. It's just a new disease that we have to deal with called monkeypox. Man, monkeypox. Holy shit. So I'm reading from USA Today, and it shows that monkeypox is now in 7 states. U.S. health officials urge awareness, not fear. 9 cases of monkeypox in 7 states have been reported or confirmed in the U.S. as of Thursday, and the public health system is ramping up to test, treat, and probably vaccinate those at high risk, health officials said. Quote, a monkeypox outbreak of this scale and scope across the world has not been seen before, said Dr. Raj Panjabi, who leads the White House Pandemic Preparedness Office, said in a news briefing Thursday. The White House, together with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is working to ensure that tests, vaccines, and treatments are easily available to all who need them, he said. Cases have been found in California, Florida, Massachusetts, New York, Utah, Virginia, and Washington. Scientists have recorded more than 350 confirmed or suspected monkeypox cases since May 5th, mainly in Europe, but also in the United States, Canada, and Australia. They are trying to determine whether the cases might be connected and how. For decades, monkeypox has been in parts of Central and West Africa and believed to have jumped occasionally from animals, probably rodents, to people. Typically, several travelers a year arrive in the U.S. and Europe infected with the virus, but such a large chain of person-to-person transmission has never been seen before. To combat the outbreak, the U.S. government is mobilizing tests, treatments, and vaccines. President Joe Biden is receiving regular updates. Up to 7,000 tests a week are available. There are 2 antiviral drugs that can be given to the infected. The antivirals are rarely needed, said Dr. Jennifer McQuiston, Deputy Director of the CDC's Division of High Consequence Pathogens and Pathology. Quote, most of the cases that have come to our attention have been mild and self-limited. In a case like that, an antiviral would not necessarily be something that was automatically recommended or administered, she said. Monkeypox cases might be mistaken for a sexually transmitted disease, the CDC warns. Vaccination is an option for healthcare workers at high risk for contracting the virus as they care for those infected. Overall, the government has multiple programs in place to help track and fight the outbreak, said CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky. Quote, monkeypox is not a new or unknown disease. CDC has been preparing for monkeypox for decades, she said. Quote, we have the resources we need right now to respond, and we know how to respond in this outbreak. And they also talk about how the majority of cases have been among gay and bisexual men, but the risk of exposure is not limited to any one particular group. Yeah. So, I mean, like, yeah, it's from what I understand, it's not like COVID where it's mainly like respiratory, like spread through cough droplets. It's mainly like personal exposure, like, physical touch, personal exposure, as they said here, sexual activity, although it's not necessarily a sexually transmitted disease. It's just, there's a lot of, touching, right? And just rubbing juices and all that. Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah. that's what's happening, man. That's where we're at. And again, there's going to be more and more of these pandemics and these outbreaks. And yeah, man, we're in for a tough ride, a tough ride. But hey, I have to do what I can not to get sick. It's just so funny to me how people say that I'm like reclusive and like, oh, we're just being germophobic. But it's like, bro, you know what? I've been so isolated, I haven't even caught the common cold. Like, I haven't. Like, and this nonchalant, like, wow, what a surprise. Like, basically everybody in my family got COVID at one point. And, like, they just have this attitude, oh, it's only a mild infection. And they have no idea how their DNA has been altered and what could come down the line. No idea. So, that's where we're at, man. It's just, yeah, I don't know, man. I try not to be so, like, depressed or anything. But, yeah, it's just, like, shit just keeps getting worse. And, I don't know, man. I'm so tired. I really am. Fighting for my life and for what? Just for the world to end. And I don't know, people try to, vilify me because I said I told you so, right? Oh my God, dude. It's just so bad. But hey, that's why I do my work, because somebody's got to say it. So I'm just going to say it. But hey, if y'all have been, sticking around, because this is a pretty long episode, and I just had to say a lot. I had to say a lot, because there's a lot going on, and it seems to be accelerating, and I'm just worried that I'm not prepared. I don't think I'm prepared for whatever happens. Like, I feel so underwhelmed and so, like, isolated, and then I'm supposed to what? Like, I'm supposed to go to these people, my family, who have been just consistently dysfunctional and violent. Like, what do? I feel so isolated, so alone, really. I don't know. But hey, I got my cat, and I have reliable people in my life that I can confide in. And if I continue with this work, hopefully, hey, I'll find my tribe with people of the Collapse program, like-minded people. It's just nice to, get satisfaction and validation. Because again, people want to act as though I've been influenced, which is not the case. Like, I just read the news, I read the papers, the peer-reviewed research, and still that's not enough. So anyway, I want to thank y'all for sticking with me. And this is a long episode, so thank you. Again, as I said, I need help, I need support. I have a job, but now they're making things difficult, and so yeah, just in a compromised position, I guess. But hey, we just gotta hang in. So anyway, thank you for tuning in at least. And again, as I said, I just urge y'all to check me out on Patreon, $1, and that will give you early access. It will help a lot. Again, though, hopefully next time I record, it won't be so dire. But hey, things are changing rapidly and evolving, so I just appreciate y'all sticking around. But thanks again. Have a good night, good morning, whatever time period it is you're in. But yeah, love you all. Thank you.